stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by.
meeting of the new year. Can I just ask everyone to make sure their electronic devices are switched off and not set to buzzing or beeping during the meeting? And can I ask our clerk, Hannah Barlow, if any apologies have been received?
Apologies have been received from Assemblymember Polanski, for whom Assemblymember Garbett is attending as his substitute.
Thank you very much, and welcome Assemblymember Garbett. Before we get to our main item, just a couple of quick bits of housekeeping. Can I ask the committee to note the recommendations set out at item 2 on declarations of interest and ask if members have any other interest to declare? Good, excellent. Minutes, can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of December and the 10th of December 2025 to be signed by me as correct records? Good, excellent. Item 4, can I ask the committee to note the ongoing and completed actions from its previous meetings?
Noted.
And item 5, can I ask the committee to note the recent action taken by me as chairman under delegated authority, namely to agree in consultation with party group lead members the letter to the Mayor of London relating to the 26-27 Greater London Authority Group budget, London Fire Commissioner, as attached at Appendix 1.
Noted.
Good. And that brings us to our main item of business this morning, which is a review or looking at the 2026-27 Greater London Authority Group budget on affordable housing. So if I could welcome all of our guests here this morning. We have Tom Copley, who's the Deputy Mayor for Housing and Residential Development. We have Tim Steer, who's the Executive Director for Housing at the GLA. We have Natalie Daniels, who is joining us remotely, who's the Assistant Director for the Housing Programmes and Partnerships at the GLA. We have Simon Powell, who is the Assistant Director of Strategic Projects and Property at the GLA. Ellen Storer, who's the Head of Specialist Housing Services at the GLA, and by Amy Simmons, who's the Interim Head of Area for North West London Housing and Land GLA. Good morning and welcome, everyone. We have, later on this morning, we will have a second panel looking at some of the specific areas of housing development in London. But first, if I can kick off with quite a broad question to you, Tom. I think the overall challenges of housing in London are quite well documented and well rehearsed. How have these developed over the last 12 months, and what factors do you think are new or emerging in delivering housing in London?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's very good to be with you today. Happy New Year to you and to the committee. I don't think I was at this meeting last year, but my colleagues were. Housing delivery obviously continues to be very challenging, but it's worthwhile reflecting on the volume of positive developments that have occurred in the last 12 months. So it feels particularly important to draw out the partnership work with our government, including key measures taken forward to support London's housing sector in the spending review and the subsequent budget. I think it's worth reflecting on the fact that I co-chaired the Housing Delivery London Housing Delivery Task Force. Pretty much every single recommendation that task force made has been implemented in the spending review. So we called for a long-term affordable housing programme, which we got. We called for CPI +1 rent increases, which we got. We called for rent convergence, which we got, and we called for right-to-buy receipts to be able to be combined with grants. So there's been a huge amount of progress, I think, in the last year. We got the £39 billion 10-year social and affordable homes programme, of which London will receive nearly £12 billion. We got the City Hall Developer Investment Fund, 322 million first payment announced recently as part of the emergency package that we negotiated with the government. We've got the DLR extension to Thamesmead, which is absolutely vital for unlocking 30,000 homes. And we've got not one, but 2 new towns for London. So I think there's been an enormous amount of progress over the last 12 months.
I suppose the question particularly is about delivery rather than sort of proposals and planning and so on. One of the, I think, surprising new bits of information that came, certainly to my attention a couple of months ago, was a piece of analysis by Molior, which said that across about half of London, it was just not viable to build housing. Is that, you're obviously something you're aware of. What's your reaction to that? Where do you think that leaves us in terms of delivering housing?
Viability is probably the biggest challenge that we face in London at the moment is the cost of building homes. London is, depending on what year you look at, the first or the second most expensive city to build in, and that's precisely why we negotiated this emergency package with the government to try and bring down the cost of building homes in London, to try and kickstart housing delivery in London. So yes, I don't think it's any secret that building housing in London is very, very expensive. We had enormous materials cost increases over the last few years. We've had thankfully they're now coming down, but we had the spike in interest rates, which has made it harder for, both developers to build homes and for people to actually be able to afford to buy homes, which is absolutely crucial. So yes, it's no secret that it's very expensive to build in London at the moment, and we are doing everything that we can, working with the government to try and bring that cost down.
That does imply, though, that whatever else happens, there's no realistic prospect of the market cost of, say, rents in London coming down. If the underlying cost to build is high and staying high, then there's no realistic prospect of market rents coming down, is there?
No, say again, sorry?
So if the cost of building new property is high, then there's no realistic prospect, is there, of, say, market rents, the rents that most Londoners are paying for their flat. There's no realistic prospect of that coming down, is there? Whatever programs.
Well, I mean, but that's precisely why we've put in place this emergency package, so that we can bring down the cost of construction, bring down the cost of building homes, and with interest rates coming down, we've had the 0.25% interest rate cut in December. I think that we expect that interest rates will probably come down again this year. All of that will make housing more affordable in London.
So rents in London might come down?
If we support the build-to-rent sector, I think.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said.
If we support the build-to-rent sector, which the mayor is doing through his policies, the more homes that we build, and by the way, we will not be able to get anywhere near to the 88,000 homes per year target if we don't support the build-to-rent sector.
Well, I was going to ask, actually, in what year do you expect London to be delivering 88,000 homes a year? So since you've mentioned that, in what year do you think we might be delivering 88,000 a year?
Well, we're going to be planning for 880,000 homes over the next 10 years. But to be clear, the London plan is not a delivery plan. It's a spatial development strategy. So we're going to be planning for the homes that we need. But we're also very, very clear that in order to actually get to that target, a lot of things have to happen. The DLR extension, which I mentioned, is very, very important. We also need the Bakerloo line extension, the West London orbital. We need a huge amount of infrastructure and a huge amount of funding in order to be able to get to that 88,000 figure.
And how much funding did the government give us for any of those rail projects?
Well, we've got a record sum, Chair.
For the rail projects?
Nearly £12 billion in the Affordable Homes Programme over the next 10 years.
Apologies. So you said that critical to delivering the 88,000 was delivering those, the
Yes.
DLR, the West London Orbital, the Bakerloo. We haven't got any money for any of those.
Well, we've got the DLR extension, which is absolutely vital. But going to be absolutely frank with you, Chair, we need those other infrastructure projects to be funded as well.
As well as what?
As well as the DLR extension.
Which has been funded to the tune of how much?
I think it's £1.5 billion?
Yeah, in terms of a joint funding package.
Yeah, £1.5 billion.
£1.5 billion of cash from the government to fund the DLR extension?
No, we're going to be raising, I think, about 50% of that ourselves, which is absolutely right. but the government has committed to supporting that extension.
With actual cash? Apologies, because I hadn't seen a headline that they're giving us cash. I heard that they were
Well,
supporting
it was announced in the budget, Chair. I mean, you know.
A cash value is not in the budget, so you're telling us that, what, about £750 million pledged by the government to the capital delivery of the DLR extension? That is news to me, so that's good news if that's true, but it is news if it is news.
Yeah, the detail of the funding package hasn't been announced yet, so that will be forthcoming in due course.
Right.
But we have the support
So nothing yet.
For it.
Well, support, I mean, they can put up some flags and some bunting. I mean, that's support. It's actual cash that gets it delivered. That's what I was asking. So, I haven't missed the big announcement.
As far as I'm Chair, to be clear, as far as I'm concerned, the DLR extension is happening.
Okay. And of the 88,000, what percentage of the 88,000 homes a year that we're talking about? But I appreciate this is not the capital delivery project, but my ears pricked up when you said we had some money for it, so I thought I would just check. Of the 88,000 homes that we're looking to deliver in London per year, roughly what percentage of those do you think should be affordable?
So this will be established as part of the strategic housing market assessment that we have conducted, and it will be, you know, it will be published as part of the next London Plan, which I think will be published in May.
If I look at the Affordable Homes Programme, that provides enough to deliver about 3%.
Oh, I mean, you know, in terms of the Affordable Homes Programme, by the way, a record Affordable Homes Programme, I think it is unlikely that it will get us to the levels that we need. But you know, my job is to make the case for the government for even more funding for affordable housing.
I mean, that's fine, but, you know, the sorts of figures that the Mayor likes to talk about are maybe a third or a half, something like that, you know, 20, 30, 50% affordable. But the actual cash that we have is sufficient to deliver something like 3.4%, maybe 6% on a good day with a following breeze.
I mean, I don't recognise that figure that you're
well, so the
quoting
Affordable
me.
Homes Programme is delivering about 18,000 homes over 6 years, which is about 3,000 homes per year, which is about 3.4% of 88,000. So surely you recognise all those figures.
It's always been a combination of planning.
Yeah. No, so obviously the homes that we fund are a proportion of the affordable homes that are delivered. There are homes that are delivered via Section 106 through developer subsidy. You know, it's not the case that it's only the homes that we fund, the affordable homes that we fund that are delivered in London.
Sure, but I just want to establish that of the 88,000, we've currently got the money from the government to do about 3.4%. You haven't told us how many the new affordable homes
Well, we won't know. I mean,
do, but that's maybe 5
to
or
be clear,
6%,
Chair, until we've had the
like
first bidding round, which opens in February, we won't know how many homes, how many affordable homes that close to 12 billion will deliver. What we do know is it's the biggest and the longest term settlement that London has ever had.
Okay, but we do know what it's currently costing. We don't think that the cost is going to go down. So it seems to me that when those numbers come through,
So the government
higher.
expects the subsidy to come down over the 10-year programme. That is an expectation the department has.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that expectation pans out, because I'll be very surprised if the cost of building comes down, as we've discussed.
No, I mean, I think you're right about that, Chair. But also we have to factor in the fact that we've got the CPI +1 rent increase, we've got the consultation on rent convergence, we've got the ability for councils to combine GLA grant with their right to buy receipts. So, you know, taken together as a package, this is very, very significant.
Okay, but you can't. We don't have a percentage. I don't want to pursue this more, but we don't have a percentage. So when do we think we might have a percentage? Sometime later this year?
Well, the bidding opens in February, closes in April.
Yeah.
Is that right? So I think in June we will announce the scale of the first bidding round. But that's only the first bidding round. We will then open for continuous market engagement, and, you know, as with, you know, other programmes that we run, you know, partners will be able to bid going forward.
Okay. But those will be the first real numbers, and we'll have a sort of sighting shot, if you like, of where things stand. Okay.
I think Nat wants to come in.
Oh.
Sorry, if that's okay.
It certainly is. I was going to move on to a different Assembly member, but you can, Natalie.
Sorry, Assembly Garrett, I will be quick. So just two things. I think the point that Tom's made is entirely right when it comes to the expectation from central government is that the various forms of cash injection they're giving into the system will have an impact on the subsidy requirement from the AHP over time. And just the other piece, which is to say on that timeline for the AHP as we work through it, clearly, and this is fantastic for London, but the AHP is part of a national programme, so we will need to be working with colleagues in central government and in our counterpart agency to understand the timeline of how we publish those those moderated results of the first bidding round.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year. I'll probably target this towards you first, Ms. Deputy Mayor, and then if anybody else wants to jump in, please do. Before the proposal was quietly dropped in the budget, did concerns about the government's intention to massively increase the landfill tax come up in discussions with your delivery partners over the last few months?
The landfill tax?
Yes.
It's not come up in any discussions that I've had. Colleagues?
I mean, it is something that people had raised over the past few months as something which they were talking to government about themselves. Yeah, so it did come up in conversation.
Okay, thank you. And although the higher rate was dropped, the lower rate is still going to more than double from £4.05 per tonne to £8.65 per tonne, though not nearly as damaging as the government's original plans. And some of the figures that I saw, it would cost about £21,000 per unit if the government had gone ahead with their original plans. Have you assessed the impact of this change across all of your programmes?
It's not something I'm aware of, Assembly Member Georgiou, but I'm very happy to look into it and to write to you.
Is it that you're not aware that it's going to have an impact, or you're not aware of what the numbers are?
I'm not aware of what the numbers are.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And you know, Ms. Deputy Mayor, you've already in your exchange with Assembly Member Garrett have spoken. You know, I think you've both agreed on the viability in the market at the moment is a real problem. But you know, without looking at the numbers, I think even you have to agree that I think on average this will still cost about £700 per unit. You know, and if we take, you know, my home borough massive scheme, you know, Meridian Water, so 10,000 units.
Recently,
well,
by the way.
I'm upset you didn't ask me to come along. I would have bought you a cup of coffee.
I would have been delighted to have had
next
you.
Next time, you're more than welcome to give me a ring.
It's fantastic development.
Yeah, well, after 16 years, only 300 units have been built of the 10,000, but that's by the by. But so on that one, that's 10,000 units are meant to be delivered. When this levy comes into place, this new lower rate, doubling for the landfill tax, that's going to cost developers £7 million to build out the site, an additional £7 million. I mean, is this not, you know, a concern?
It's something that I will look into and I will get back to you about.
Right, and when you do get back to us in the committee and you find that these numbers, as I've illustrated, are quite astronomical, is it something you'd be willing to go back to government on and say this really isn't helping viability in the market in London?
Well, I'm always willing to talk to the government about challenges around viability, and that's precisely why we negotiated the emergency package that we negotiated recently. All of that was about trying to improve viability. What I will say about Meridian Water is, the scheme I visited a few weeks ago, 100% affordable. It's about 300 units. It's absolutely fantastic. So, you know, there is, you know, some really amazing development that we are supporting as the GLA at Meridian Water.
No, you know, 300 units of 10,000 over 16 years is really, really good, Ms. Deputy Mayor. But anyway, on one final point, you spoke to Assembly Member Garrett about your 88,000 homes per year target. Now, you told the Housing Committee in September that you wouldn't be able to deliver the 88,000 without touching the Greenbelt. So given you feel you know that, what is the maximum number you can deliver without building on the Greenbelt? I'd
probably have to talk to my colleagues in planning. I I'm absolutely clear we cannot get to that number without building on the green belt. In terms of the precise details around the gap between brownfield and green belt development, I can't give you a figure now, but I'm very happy to get back to you about it.
I mean,
But to be absolutely clear, we cannot achieve that 88,000 homes per year target without going on the green belt.
Yeah, I just struggle to understand how you could be so confident about that number without knowing what the other number is, which is the maximum number of units you can deliver without developing on the green belt.
I'm very confident, and our colleagues in planning have done some extremely in-depth and detailed work on this.
So we'll get that number then, will we?
We can get back to you, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Assembly Member Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, panel, and Happy New Year to you all as well. Tom, my question is to you. You stressed a few times the importance of the DLR extension in the Royal Docks, going from Beckton across the river to Thamesmead. Can you elaborate on this? Why is it important, and what housing potential will it unleash? I know the importance of the extension, but I ask you this question for the benefit of Londoners watching in and who are desperate for more housing, and I think also for those people in politics who don't understand the connection between transport, housing, and building infrastructure to support more housing.
I mean, it's absolutely vital. I mean, I don't think I need to tell the committee the importance of the connection between transport and housing. The DLR extension will unlock 30,000 homes on both sides of the river. Do we know the balance of that between Beckton and Thamesmead? Is 15,000 each?
It's broadly half and half. I think it's about 20,000 south of the river and 10,000.
Yeah. It's something like that. So it brings huge benefits to your constituency. While we're on the subject, I think it's worth talking about some of the other big news we've had in the Royal Docks recently. We've had the news about the markets coming. We've had the first homes, 100% affordable, completed at Silvertown Quays, which is a site that's lain derelict for 40 years. There's huge amounts happening in the Royal Docks now, and the DLR extension is just going to help that.
And of course, you've got the Buckley Homes development in Galleons Reach. At one time in the early 80s, I remember, that's where Newham Council used to dump their waste.
Yes.
And now it's being turned into housing. I think there's about 10,000 homes at the park.
10,000 homes. Yep.
So altogether, we're talking of something like 30,000 homes. Both sides of the river.
And in terms of the Royal Docks specifically, we're going to be building 36,000 homes, creating 55,000 jobs. It's a huge priority for the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Bring it on, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks. Assembly Member Harani.
Thank you, Chair. Just on housing still, a question for Tim. How will the Mayor ensure the delivery of the rent-controlled homes for key workers and make sure that they can be scaled up and aren't just something that remain as pilots?
So we're going to be launching, imminently, the planning practice, I think it's a planning practice note, around key worker living rent. It's a huge priority for the Mayor. We've got a manifesto commitment to start 6,000 by 2030, and they're going to be absolutely vital for Londoners. So I think you can expect within probably the next few days the publication of the guidance that sits behind the key worker living rent policy.
I'll come in briefly to add to that. So, this is going to be a new intermediate rent tenure aimed specifically at key workers. And that will be promoted through the new social and affordable homes programme. We talked about it a bit in the prospectus that we launched in the autumn, but as Tom says, there's going to be more detail for providers coming out in the coming days about the specifics of that product. The trick with it is it's a grant-funded product, so it sits alongside social rent as an intermediate rent product. And what we've been trying to do in designing this new tenure is to balance keeping rents affordable for key workers, versus creating a viable product which partners can bring forward on a commercial basis with that grant support, and hopefully making that tenure attractive to investors too, because of a really predictable rent increases over time, which is what the investors need to get behind this new product. So we'll need to see what comes through our first SAHP bidding round, as Tom talked about, in February to April. But we'll be promoting this new product to partners before that opens, because we see it as a really important part of the mix alongside social rent homes.
I think that point that Tim made about the predictability of rent increases is absolutely vital. We want to make this a product that will attract investment alongside the grant that we put in, and having that kind of rent certainty is really, really important. And we've been engaging very, very closely with delivery partners about the shape of this in order to make it a really investable tenure.
Okay. And just on something you have mentioned quite a few times now, Deputy Mayor, on the allowance for the rent increase of CPI plus 1% from April 2026. So what is the impact of that, and what has the feedback been from social housing providers?
I mean, it's absolutely vital. I mean, when George Osborne, when he was Chancellor, cut social rents, obviously, sounds great, sounds brilliant, helps tenants, but it was a cynical ploy to reduce the housing benefit bill, and it took billions of pounds out of housing associations and councils, which they could have spent on delivering new homes. So, having that, certainty for our delivery partners in terms of rents going up CPI plus 1 is absolutely important.
Okay. And just on the overall package, so a question for Tim really on the 39 billion social and affordable homes programme. How will it be reflected in the delivery targets for homes over the 10-year period?
Yeah, so obviously we understand what the London allocation of that is. Tom talked about the nearly 12 billion allocation for London over the next 10 years. We've got a good position with government in the sense that they've agreed to set us our target for delivery against that 12 billion after we've seen the responses to the initial bidding round. So I think it's helpful so we can get that kind of proper market assessment of where things are and how that long-term picture looks to our partners. As Thomas said, there have been some really significant measures over the past few months looking to address both the financial capacity of our delivery partners and some of the things in the spending review that Tom talked about, but also looking at wider viability issues for schemes. We're really hopeful that partners are now kind of planning on a long-term basis. They can see this 10-year programme, they can see these measures that have been taken and look to plan, on that basis, and we'll get a real sense of what their long-term plans look like in this initial bidding round. And then it's then that we'll work with government to set the target for us to deliver. And as we've said before, we're expecting to get that target from government at some point in the kind of June type of period, but it will be, that time scale isn't totally in our gift.
Yeah.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so you've not profiled it over the 10 years, you're going to see what the impact of the first round is, and then you'll start to see or try and model how that looks over 10 years.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we'll know in June.
In June, we'll know
how it looks.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story, of course. As I said to Assembly Member Garrett, we will open for continuous market engagement. We expect to have some funding left over after the first bidding round for partners. But what we do want is the biggest first bidding round possible. So we really want partners, to give us their, their sort of best sort of intention of what they can deliver over the next 10 years. We really do want a very big and substantial first bidding round.
Can I just add one thing? Because I can see Nat wincing when we're talking about June, because I think we have to see that as
Have I misspoken, Tim?
Possibly. there's a lot of road to run between now and the end of the bidding round, and then following the end of the bidding round, a lot of work to do to assess the bids that have come in, and then agree what that looks like with government, and they will have their own thinking to do as well before they set that target and kind of sign off our approach. So we will be working very hard from the close of that bidding window in April, and we'll be expecting to get more and more clarity over the summer.
Okay. Well, apologies, and I withdraw June as the expected date.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor, did I just hear you correctly? You said that artificially keeping rents low sounds like a good idea, but ultimately is very damaging to the long-term viability of the sector. But isn't that the Mayor's stated plan? He wants rent control powers to do exactly that to private rents, doesn't he?
Well, I thought that's where you were going to go with this question, Chair. What I would say is, in terms of the Mayor's rent control policy, it specifically carves out exceptions for build to rent. So, to make sure that we don't discourage investment in rented housing. In Vienna, for example, they have rent control. I think that it applies only to properties built before 1948 or something like that. So, the Mayor's rent control policy is nuanced, and it is designed to make sure that we don't end up with a situation where investment in new build to rent is discouraged. And of course, if you look at social landlords, they are investing in new build. It's one of their raison d'etres is the delivery of new properties. Whereas I think buy-to-let landlords, that's not the case.
So the Mayor's rent control policy, he doesn't want powers to control private rents.
No, he does. No, to be clear, his policy on rent control is to establish a commission to design a rent control policy, but it's always been very clear. I think it's in the London model of renting that was announced, years ago. There have to be provisions made to ensure that build to rent, i.e., new build to rent properties, that investment in that is not discouraged.
Okay. Assembly Member Garbutt.
I'm very nicely going to follow on from you on rents, and then I'll do my other questions on context afterwards. But it was really interesting hearing you talk about the rent control, the Mayor's rent control position, and I just wondered if that's written down anywhere.
So I think that what I just set out is in the London model of renting, which was published, under my predecessor, actually.
The blueprint from 2019, yeah. And then, so you just mentioned the Rent Commission, which I'm really interested in. So will there be any provision in the budget to set up a Rent Commission to design the model of rent controls that we need going forward, which is the work that needs to be done? Because you just described how all these different places have all these different models.
We haven't made provision for that because, unfortunately, and this is an area we disagree with the government on, and we're very open about that. Unfortunately, the government has made it very clear that they are not willing to do this. They're not willing to devolve the power to us or to Greater Manchester or any of the other mayoral authorities, which we regret, but we continue to make the case. And on that basis, we would not make provision in the budget for something that,
And that's where we disagree, because I think if you did the commission, you could build the case. But so just staying on renting, I had a conversation with the Mayor at Mayor's Question Time about the manifesto commitment to fund unions. So I know that you're meeting with the unions, and will that be part of the discussion to include funding for unions in this period as the Renters' Rights Act comes into fruition?
Yes, I'm meeting with them this month. It will be on the agenda. I would point out as I'm sure that you are very aware, the severe constraints on the GLA budget this year, but it is something that I'm pushing for.
And I think, it would be good to speak to them about what in any funding could help and support them, because, even if they were able to get one or two posts, I think that would be a significant help across London.
Absolutely. And I would point out as well, I think that we've, across the sort of broad range of advice and community organisations. 11 million, I think, we've invested as the GLA. So,
yes, and that's like citizens' advice and things, but the manifesto commitment was specifically for unions. And I just wanted to pick up on something that was in the Improving London Housing Stock Delivery Programme, because I think it's the way it's written, but I'd really like to understand, because this has been in a couple of articles and things. There's a £4 million number that's spoken about in terms of establishing the best practice hub for landlord licensing, but kind of tagged on the end sometimes is to back renters' groups and renters' unions. So in the way it's written, I struggle to understand if that bit is included in the 4 million, if the 4 million is just for the hub.
Tim, could you take that one?
I'm not sure I can, actually. I'd need to check the wording of the delivery plan and probably come back to you on that.
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
But what you mentioned around this sort of best practice, I don't think we're calling it a hub, are we? We're calling it
that was in a document.
That's really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I support it. It's just understanding what that 4 million, what that 4 million includes would be really good to understand.
We will get back to you.
Brilliant.
On that.
And then just some comments on this opening context around the targets and picking up on a few things that people have said. So in terms of the house building measures, the support for developers, the threshold for affordable homes is being reduced. And I know you said that it will be very, very significant in terms of what's going to be delivered. So I just wondered if you could describe what success looks like and what tracking's in place for those, to be measured.
To be very clear, the threshold has not been reduced. The 35% threshold remains. We are introducing an emergency measure at 20%. We fully believe, and I think we're seeing this, that some developers will still come in at 35%. There are very real incentives for developers to come in at 35% if they can actually achieve that in terms of not having any late-stage review. To your question about what the success looks like, we are in an absolute trough at the moment in terms of starts on site for multiple reasons, many of which are unfortunately the fault of the previous government. For me, success in 2026 is we pull ourselves out of that.
And that's in total numbers, because I think what we've been talking about is, and how much of that is affordable. So is that success? Have you got kind of different trajectories for the kind of affordable homes and council homes as part of that, or is it just even if numbers regardless?
So I think we're going to see both. I think we're going to see overall numbers go up and affordable numbers go up, and very happy to circle back to this in January 2027.
Which is the tracking bit.
To see if that's been the case. No, tracking is very, very important, and it's one thing that I have tasked our team with as part of this, is very, very closely monitoring the numbers. What's coming in through 35%, what's coming in through 20%, what's coming in through viability tested, so that we can actually track this. And, because I agree with the Assembly member, I think it's important that we get the proof of if these measures are successful.
Great, because that was going to be my follow-up, is that are the Section 106 homes that are funded through the new time-limited planning going to be kind of separately tracked? But it sounds like you're going to really break it down in terms of which part.
I'm hoping to get quite sort of a granular picture of how these measures are working.
Great, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I really want to congratulate you. It's taken you 38 minutes to actually blame the previous government.
Were you timing me, Susan?
That's a longer amount of time than you normally take. Normally it's the first thing that comes out your mouth. And we must remember that this mayor has been in place for nearly 10 years, so let's not ignore that. Now, I want to go back to renting, because obviously any of us with any sense should be concerned about the rental market. What noises exactly are you hearing regarding the increased tax rate on private rental income in the budget in April, from April, and what impact do you expect it to have on rents and property available in London?
So, Assembly Member Hall, nobody has specifically come to me about that particular measure, whether that be buy-to-let landlords, build-to-rent landlords. It's not been raised with me. So, nobody has spoken to me about that.
Well, people don't come to me with lots of things. I still have thoughts and views on things. Surely you have thoughts and views on things before people come to you to ask you questions. I mean, with the fact that it's going up 2%, do you not think that landlords will actually put that onto their renters?
I think that what we need to do is support the build-to-rent sector, which is what the Mayor is doing through his London plan. And, you know, going back to the key worker living rent point that I was discussing with Krupesh, us being able to fund that and subsidise that as part of our affordable homes programme is going to support the build-to-rent sector, because that is mainly the affordable tenure that they deliver rather than social rent.
So you don't think that the 2% increase is going to be offset from landlords onto renters?
What I'm telling you, it's not been. No one has raised this with me, and obviously
that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, Tom.
So many conversations with build-to-rent providers and landlords, etc. No one's raised it with me.
So you don't think it will have an impact?
Well, I think if it was,
I'm raising it with you. Have a little thought. What do you think?
If it was going to have an impact, there would be people, knocking on my door saying, you need to come against this, you need to oppose this. I've not had that.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? From a purely financial point of view, have any assessments been done on the likely impact of the Renters' Rights Act 2025 in London?
There's not been a GLA assessment, Assembly Member Hall, but I think that there are, in terms of the benefits to tenants, there are an enormous number of benefits for renters in terms of, security, in terms of affordability, because, renters will be able to challenge ridiculous rent rises by going to a rent tribunal in a way that they couldn't really practically do before. So I think the benefits are enormous. I've no doubt the government, when they were coming up with the policy, did their own assessment, but the GLA itself has not done any assessment, but we do believe it will be hugely beneficial for renters.
But you're saying the government did do an assessment. Have you had sight of that?
Well, I think it's quite possible
so big,
that they will
surely
have done. I think it's quite possible they will have done.
You don't know?
Sorry?
You don't know? You're assuming?
No.
Do you think it would be a good idea to have a little look at that? Bearing in mind we've got so many renters in London.
All I know is that what the Renters' Rights Act is delivering is a huge increase to the rights of tenants. It will be it will be hugely beneficial to renters, and bearing in mind that in London we have a disproportionately high level of private renting, it will be disproportionately beneficial.
We do. I'm just wondering whether it would turn landlords off actually renting out their properties. I was just wondering whether you'd looked into any impact assessments. Clearly not. Well, that's a bit of a worry. Do you think the Mayor is disappointed that the government hasn't moved on his long-held desire for rent controls in London, either as part of the aforementioned Act or, of course, the budget, or are there any other measures?
Well, we are disappointed the government hasn't moved to our position on rent control. We continue to make the case. We do think that the Renters' Rights Act actually delivers quite a lot of the benefits in terms of, as I said to you just a minute ago, the ability for renters now to go to a rent tribunal to challenge ridiculous rent increases without the fear of retaliatory eviction. I think that's an enormous benefit. So I think the government have moved a long way, not quite as far as we would like, but they have moved a long way.
You've just said that you continue to make the case.
We do.
That's interesting, because the Housing Minister wrote in September, and I'll quote, "The government has not received direct representations for the Mayor of London or mayors of lobbying for this admittedly terrible idea," because it is a terrible idea, consists of just press releases and vibes. How does he expect to make the progress on this if he doesn't actually engage with the government?
Well, all I can tell you is
you're saying you do. The Housing Minister.
We do make the case, and we
well, the
consistently
Housing Minister said that you hadn't.
Well, we consistently make the case, Assemblymember Hall.
Well, I wonder who's right there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, Assemblymember Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Again, my question is to you, Tom. So just continuing on the theme of more housing, including affordability and transport connectivity. I understand the development beyond City Hall on the other side of Silvertown Way, which is currently going through planning processes, will involve the building of thousands of homes and United Nations Center for Sustainability Studies, which will be the third United Nations sort of international office, one in Geneva, New York, and this will be the third one. And I've been involved in some of the discussions around the development of this site. My understanding is that the developer may or will fund the building of a new DLR station between Canning Town and West Silvertown. Can you update this committee where we are with this? Or if you don't have the information to hand, tell us in due course.
I think you're referring to Thameside West, is that
correct? Yeah, that's the
correct?
So, yes. Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of the site, yeah.
So yes, my understanding, and Simon might want to come in on this, is yes, the Arada, who have taken over Regal, will be funding that station. Is that correct, Simon?
Yeah, that's the plan at the moment. So Arada have joined forces with Silvertown Homes Limited, which is the Swiss-owned owners of some of the land, and GLAP owns some of that land. We're currently in discussions as to how that is coming forward. We're really hopeful that that's going to come forward in the next 12 to 18 months in terms of starts on site, which will be great. I'm really pleased to see. In terms of the DLR station, that is under discussion at the moment, but it's intended that will come from the contributions from the developers working on that site in terms of funding that DLR station.
Okay, thank you.
So remember, Garbutt has a very short...
Very quick. Just to say that the Housing Committee in our meetings in January and February looking exactly at what Assemblymember Hall was talking about in terms of the impact of the Renters' Rights Act on London. So we will be obviously sharing our investigation, our findings with you. And also just picking up on I did raise exactly what Assemblymember Hall was raised with the Mayor at MQT, and he said that he was going to write that day to the Housing Minister. So it would be really helpful if we could see that letter about his support for rent controls.
He certainly did write. I can't guarantee it quite went out on the same day, but he certainly did write, yes.
Was that a promise to send us a copy of that letter? Is that what I just heard?
That's what I heard. Yeah, I think we can do that.
Brilliant. That would be very useful. Thank you. Now I'm looking at the Affordable Homes Programme 2016 to 2023. Assemblymember Hall.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, is there a risk of a non-completion of the 116,000 starts under the Affordable Homes Programme 2016 to 23? And what would the financial consequences be? Would the funding need to be repaid to the GLA or government?
Well, I mean, so all of the 116,000, more than 116,000 starts that were delivered under the 16-23 programme were legitimately recorded. If for whatever reason a delivery partner is not able to complete a scheme, the money is returned to the GLA and then we reinvest it in additional affordable housing delivery.
And is that likely?
Well, I mean, as you know, there have been some very sort of high-profile cases, a particular one in Ealing, for example, where the council was not able to continue the scheme, a contractor went bust, and in that instance, the funding was returned to the GLA.
Okay, so how many units do you think will not have been completed? Because the Mayor constantly goes on about starts, but you can't live in a start.
Well, I mean, I'm very happy to talk about completions, Assembly Member Hall. We've completed 80,000 of the 116,000 starts. We've completed 80,000, and if you expand that to the what was covered by the MOU with the previous government, 87,000 completions. So I'm very happy to talk to you about completions. Some of these homes are on schemes that are very long-term. They are estate regeneration schemes, and I think the latest completion is 2033, potentially. But our team in Housing and Land are dedicated to ensuring that as many of those starts as possible lead to a completion.
So the GLA previously stated that most of the affordable home programme for those years to 23 are expected to complete by 2029, with a small number in the 2030s.
Yes, it's a small number post 2029. Yeah.
Give us an idea of a small number,
Tim.
I'm actually not sure what exactly as a percentage what that. It may be that Nat or Amy has got that figure to hand, but just to make the point generally that it was an advantage of the 16 to 23 programme that it did allow those long-term projects.
Absolutely.
Some of those estate regen projects, it's really hard to get them off the ground without that long-term certainty. So the ability for them to be planned across that kind of 10-year period was really instrumental in getting some of those estate regen schemes off the ground. I mean, it is, the vast majority are finishing by 2029. There are a small number which go on beyond that, and we can let you have that figure.
Okay.
We can give you that figure, but to stress Tim's point, it was a huge advantage of that programme to enable us to, regenerate, homes that were simply not fit for purpose.
Yeah. No, I get that. Which boroughs or development schemes are likely to see the most significant waits? Off
the top of my head, Susan, I mean, the schemes that are likely to last the longest are the estate regeneration schemes. I mean, I think Cambridge Road in Kingston is possibly the last one. But
often, it's worth saying that these schemes are multi-phase schemes, so often a proportion of the housing is delivered earlier, and then another phase comes through. So we're talking about the final phases which complete in those longer timescales.
All right. Well, while we're trying to work things out, do you think you could send us a complete list of those, as you haven't got them to hand? It would at least give us some knowledge. You often ask questions and it's sort of thrown into the distance. It'd be so nice for us in our heads, especially people on the Housing Committee, to actually know specifics here.
We can certainly put some information together.
That's perfect, thank you. And going on for that, when is the last completion expected? Well, you're saying that is in
33.
Your area?
2033.
Yeah. Sorry?
2033.
Okay. All right, if you can share the details of those with us, we'd be very grateful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So now looking at the Affordable Homes Programme 2021-26, Assembly Member Wilson. No, it's not working, actually.
Hello?
There you go.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you. Might have a low battery, I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Chair, and good morning, panel. So, yes, looking then onto the next programme, the 21-26 programme, the first couple of questions will be around deliverability, and I think, again, it's probably mainly directed at yourself, Deputy Mayor. Do you, I understand at the Housing Committee back in September, you said that you were confident that the target will be delivered. I think based on the information that's being provided by our delivery partners, we will be able to achieve the new target range that has been set out. Do you remain confident that the numbers, the target under this scheme, are delivered according to deadline?
I'm going to say to you exactly what I said at this stage in the 2016 to 23 programme, which is that it's extremely challenging. It's extremely challenging. But I would point out that we did hit the 2016 to 23 programme target on time. So all I will say is it's extremely challenging.
And has anything in particular changed between September, when you said what I just said you said, and now that means it's more challenging now than it was just a matter of months ago?
If anything, things have improved. And what I'm hearing now from our team is that we are getting much more interest in terms of schemes that can come into the programme. Our team can be much more picky, you might say, about who we choose to fund. We can negotiate better grant rates. So I would say probably since September the position has improved.
Okay, thank you for that. But based on the information we've been provided with in our briefing, now I accept that the kind of figures that have been provided here are dated March 2025, so that's obviously a few months ago, but it suggests that 71% of total starts would have needed to be achieved in the final year of the programme by March this year, so just 2 months away. So I don't know, perhaps there's been a huge swathe of spades in the ground since March last year. If there have, I don't think we've seen them. So the question, I guess, is that sort of 12 to 13,000 starts required by March 2026, is that delivered? What has been happening since March 2025? Is there evidence of that genuinely happening?
I mean, as I often say at this committee, a housing committee, there is a hockey stick. It does go up like this towards the end of the programme. And, you talk there about, 12,000 starts. I'd remind the committee that we delivered 25,000 in 22-23. So, we are not talking about unachievable numbers here in the context of, historic delivery.
Given that we're just 2 months away from that deadline, it should be obvious if it's achievable or not. We can talk about hope and aspiration and based on past record, we could do it. But is there evidence actually happening on the ground to suggest that by March 2026, i.e. 2 months from now, those numbers of starts have started? Either they started or they haven't.
I think I've already said there has been since I spoke in September, there's been a huge increase in delivery, in terms of partner interest, in terms of the the number and the scale of partners that are coming to us with schemes. So yes, I think we've got evidence that the situation is significantly improving.
Starting on the ground, visible.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fine. And you're confident that by just 2 months from now, somewhere in that ballpark,
I still think it's extremely challenging. I'm not going to make I'm not going to make any bones about that. I think it's extremely challenging. But the evidence that we have from what partners are bringing to us is that there is a big uptick in terms of interest, in terms of delivery.
Okay, so do you have a figure then for the anticipated number of starts that we'll have under this programme by just 2 months' time?
Well, we fully anticipate that we will get to the midpoint of the target range, which I think is 18,400. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And within that, what are the expected level of acquisitions do you expect to contribute to the overall numbers?
Well, we're
that
capped.
Program?
So we're capped at, 30%? Yeah.
Okay. And if these targets are not met, not delivered, and the starts, and later down the track the completions are not met by the target of, I believe, 2030, what are the financial implications for the GLA, for the programme? Does money have to be returned to central government if those targets?
Well, if we don't deliver against a target, then the money would have to be returned. But I am confident that we will not have to give any money back to the government.
Thank you. Perhaps forgive us if we don't necessarily share your confidence in that level of deliverability. But moving on to the costings. So. Obviously, we know about rising build costs being a contributing factor to why things are more difficult. We all know and understand that. But looking at what we've been shared in the briefing, comparing the previous programme with this current programme, then the effective subsidy per unit has gone up by 5 times. That seems like an awful large amount. So we talk about these schemes delivering homes, but the new scheme, or this current scheme, clearly delivering a much lower quantum overall at much higher cost per unit. What is contributing to that?
Well, I mean, build costs have escalated massively. I think the cost of concrete and steel is up by something like 50%. Interest rates are higher. And let's bear in mind that the previous programme, the 1623 programme, these were historically low grant rates. I mean, the level of subsidy as a proportion of the cost of building property was at historically low levels. So in some ways, we're seeing a sort of return to normal. But the government has been very, very clear that over the course of the next Affordable Homes programme, they don't want that cost to rise. In fact, they want it to come down.
Hope and aspiration isn't necessarily a strategy for making that happen, so we'll be interested to see how that...
But some of the other measures that they've announced, the rent, the CPI plus 1 rent increases, rent convergence, things like that, makes the subsidy gap smaller.
Sure. Okay. Well, I don't want to stray into next member's question on the future scheme, but still sticking to this current scheme, the 21-26 scheme, and noting that the subsidy 5 times bigger. You say 50% rise in costs, so 5 times increase in the subsidy seems disproportionate. Yes, we mentioned build costs, but also looking at the conditions that are required attached to this scheme. So it seems to be gold plating, going over and above what would be required in planning policy terms and building standards. So additional building safety standards, minimum design standards, additional sustainability standards, additional EDI standards. I mean, Christ knows what that's supposed to deliver. But all that is contributing to making it difficult. It's self-inflicted. No. It's self-inflicted that you're not delivering the numbers, and the numbers that you are delivering are more costly to deliver.
First of all of the standards that are attached to the 21-26 programme are London Plan policies. So we would expect them to be delivered anyway. Secondly, I mean, I don't think any of the organisations that we partner with wouldn't have strong EDI policies. We want to make sure absolutely that they do. But no, I don't think we are layering on costs. And frankly, after Grenfell, we make absolutely no apology for expecting the highest level possible of fire safety standards. So no apology there.
Grenfell and fire safety, but the other issues are still contend at large.
All of those design standards and sustainability standards are in the London Plan.
Level of subsidy on the current scheme, so between 210 and 225,000. Now that could buy, very comfortably a two-bed flat in Dagenham, for example. So that's not a subsidy. That's a gift, effectively. So it just seems like the delivery of this current programme. As I say, the overall quantum of budget seems similar to the original programme, but the number of homes being delivered, and that's the key metric here. We need to have a demonstrable impact on people on those waiting lists. It needs to be the number of homes that needs to be massively ramped up, and this scheme simply isn't doing that.
Can I just make one point about that comparison between the subsidy levels of 5 times? Because I don't think that's quite right, actually, because I think perhaps if you compare 116,000 homes to the target for the current one of around 18,000, then it looks like 5 times the amount of subsidy. But actually, there's been a change in the way that the numbers are counted, in the sense that 116,000 included homes which came through the Section 106 system, so they're not directly comparable in that way. Subsidy requirements are definitely higher now than they were a few years ago. Build costs are higher, subsidy requirements are higher. That was the key reason why we needed to work with government to revise the target down for the new programme, so we could ensure that grant levels were realistic for the requirements. But I think the objective of the programme and the new programme coming up is that we do absolutely minimise those grant requirements. Every single deal is fully negotiated, so that the teams go to great lengths to ensure that subsidy requirements are minimised and only used where necessary, so we can maximise the number of affordable homes that we can fund through the programmes.
I'm sure they do, but as I say, it seems to me that for spending a similar amount of money, we're getting an awful lot less, and fundamentally that's what this needs to be judged on, the quantum of development that happens.
I'm sorry, but build costs have gone up, in some cases the cost of construction materials 50%. I mean, you can't...
50% isn't 500% though, is it?
And add to that interest rates. It costs, I think, about £400,000, maybe more on average, to build a home in London. So, you know, I think what you're doing is comparing historically low grant rates with what are now probably, you know, normal in historic context grant rates.
I'll finish in a second, Chair, but just to kind of wrap up, clearly I see this as you know, failure of deliverability. It's not delivering value for money either. And to go back to your the comment that you made in response to another member's question, and this is why I believe this your optimism that you'll hit these targets is completely misfounded. You said only a few minutes ago in front of us, we're in an absolute trough in terms of starts on site. So in 2 months' time, we are not going to see the number of starts on site that we're projected to. And as you said, we'll end up having to give money back to government.
Overall starts on site, and as I said to you, we do have the hockey stick effect with the Affordable Homes Programme specifically, where you know, you get a lot more starts in the final year and indeed the final quarter.
Well, we've got the final 2 months to look forward to, haven't we? Thank you.
We'll circle back.
Can we not circle back? Assembly Member Georgiou.
Tom, can I just say, I'm enamoured with this hockey stick flourish that you've got. Can you show us that again? Thank you so much. With regard to the acquisitions, and I don't know who in particular wants to answer this question, but the Housing Committee was told in September that at Q1 there were over 5,000 starts, 440 acquisitions, and had reached around a quarter of the expected starts under this programme. So it is reasonable to assume there might be around 2,000 acquisitions by the time it concludes. That's roughly about 10% of the expected homes to be delivered. Or is this estimate too low?
So we're capped at 30%.
Yeah.
And I think you've also got to bear in mind there are different kinds of acquisitions. So, you know, there's an acquisition where a council might buy back a former property that it sold under right to buy, but there are also essentially kind of, you know, off the peg, you know, developer has built a new building and you know, they can't sell the flats, so they flip it over to affordable. So there are different kind of shades of acquisition, as it were.
But in terms of the way that you treat the 30% cap, is it something that, you know, you kind of want to keep a distance from, or you want to hit the 30%? I mean, what's the intention?
So to be honest with you, I would be in favour of us having the maximum flexibility, because that then enables us to support the sector where it needs to be supported. So, as I just mentioned, you know, if a developer can't sell you know, a block of new housing, we can step in, provide the affordable housing funding, flip it to affordable. I think that we should have the maximum flexibility to be able to respond to what the market is saying. Equally, I would not want us to, you know, just be funding councils to buy back right to buy properties, because we want to have a focus on new delivery.
Well, Tom, with the greatest respect, I want the flexibility to eat as many Terry Chocolate's oranges that my colleague Assembly Member Hall buys me on my birthday and Christmas without going over my calorie count. But the reality is, you know, what you've said you want the flexibility. What is the intention? Are you looking to go up to the cap of 30% in order to make your figures look better?
No,
you know, I hear what you're saying, you know, but there must be an intention. You can't just say, oh, we want to, you know, remain fluid and liquid within the market. You know, do you want to get to that 30% or don't you? Either is not a ignoble, answer.
I mean, it's not true to say that I'm agnostic, because I would always rather that we were supporting new build. But, you know, you have to factor in the realities of the market as it is. We're not aiming to hit a 30% target, but if that's what partners bring to us, then, you know, we might well end up getting.
So it's going to fluctuate depending on the circumstances.
It can fluctuate depending on the circumstances.
Okay. All right. Yes. Thank you. So, final question for me then: do we roughly know what the total cost of acquisitions will be by the end of the 21 to 26 programme?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. We might be able to get back to you.
Well, we don't have a rough figure cumulatively over the period of the programme. I mean, we are in 2026. I mean, can't be that far off a number.
Well, I just don't have a figure in the briefing for where we've got to. But you know, as Tom says, it's a cap, not a target. I suspect that we will be reasonably close to the cap by the time we get towards the end of the programme.
Okay.
But as I say, there's different shades of that.
Of course.
It's not just, you know, buying back former right to buy properties. It's also, you know, essentially supporting private developers, you know, by buying, you know, blocks off the, off the shelf.
And we're seeing schemes across London at the moment where the viability has collapsed on schemes where already 2/3 have been built out, but the final third can't be because of viability. So, you know, the question, you know, you always think I've got some sort of dubious aims here, you know, to trip you up. No, absolutely not. I just, it's good to know. You know, because I think that 30% cap, looking at it in the totality and what your ambitions are, is quite helpful to know. But I think Tim's response as well on we're probably going to be close to it is quite helpful. So, but if we could get those numbers, I'd be grateful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just before we move on from this programme, actually, the programme's currently underway. So we know there's a growing gap between starts and completions. The two lines are sort of diverging in a way you wouldn't really expect. I'm sure you're aware, Tom, of the blog post, I suppose you call it, from the head of Molior in the autumn, saying that his view was that there was some fakery going on and starts were being booked based on, you know, absolute bare minimum, you know, meeting the letter of the criteria, but with no serious intent to proceed to completion. And that does seem to be echoed in the data, which does show lots of starts not leading to completion. Are you aware of that allegation, and what do you make of it?
Well, yes. I mean, Chair, you and Assembly Member Lord Bailey wrote to me, and I responded to you. I thought it was an outrageous allegation, particularly because it specifically targeted GLA staff. It was completely unsubstantiated. It was outrageous to go after GLA staff in that way. And can I just say to you, I often, quite regularly, get approached by delivery partners complaining that you know, that we're not giving them the start on site that they want, and expecting that I will somehow be able to magically intervene and, you know, give them the start on site. And that's absolutely not the case. There is a established definition of a start on site, which is pretty much the same as Homes England definition. And, you know, I can't just tell, you know, Amy, you know, you need to put this. You need to record a start for this particular scheme. It was an outrageous allegation, and you know, I think I responded to it quite, you know, substantially in the letter that I wrote to you.
So his you say it's unsubstantiated. His claim is that it's substantiated by him physically visiting sites, seeing what's going on, speaking to the developers. And your view is that that's just not correct.
Hang on a minute. It is not exactly a state secret that there are stalled sites across London. So to give one example, when Henry, just one contractor, Henry, went bust, that affected multiple delivery partners, particularly Amy's delivery partners, where they're sort of based in West London. And that was just one contractor. There have been multiple contractors going bust that have affected our programme. So yes, it might be the case that something that has legitimately started on site is not currently continuing to be built out because of factors beyond the mayor or the GLA's control. But it is outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous for claims like that to be made completely in an unsubstantiated way that are directed at GLA staff. It's absolutely outrageous.
Okay, well, that's a very robust response. I'm sure we'll hear again from Molior about what, because they seem confident of that.
And I'm saddened as well because we work with Molior. We work with them. Members of our team engage, you know, on a sort of daily basis, weekly basis with Molior because of the data that they have. So
why do you think he wrote that post? I mean, it's a strange thing for him to do.
Sorry?
So why do you think he wrote it? You're painting a picture of like maybe vindictive or deluded or something.
He could have written to me, he could have emailed me, he could have called me, and I would have spoken to him. But he didn't reach out in any way and then makes this completely unsubstantiated claim. It is absolutely outrageous.
Okay, we sound like we're at an impasse on that, so perhaps I look forward to hearing what his response is to your response to his allegation, because it one way or another, it's very serious, because, I mean, I don't know either way. You understand?
Frankly, if he has got evidence that anything that the GLA officers are doing is not to the standard that we would expect, he should call me.
Understood. Okay, we now move on to the Social and Affordable Homes Programme 26 to 36, the new 10-year programme. Assemblymember Clark.
Thank you, Chair. When do you expect the spend profiling and delivery targets for this new 10-year social and affordable programme to be agreed?
So I've already been told off for giving a date that apparently is not correct. So I'm going to pass over to Tim or Nat for this question.
I'm happy to take that, Tim, if you're happy for me to.
Please, yeah.
Thank you, and sorry I didn't mean to chastise Tom in any way. What we are anticipating, sorry, I can hear my own echo and it's slightly putting me off, so I'm going to try and work through that. The bidding window we expect to close in April. There will then be a moderation process, and Tom is right. We would aim to be in a place where we have a clear view of our intentions in the timeline that Tom is talking about. But as Tim said, there is a road to run where we need to, thank you for whoever just did that. There is a road to run that we need to agree with central government about how that finalised preferred bidding profile is signed off, and that is in the context that the Affordable Homes Programme is a government major project in programme, so it has oversight from MHCLG but also from Treasury and NISTA. So there's certain processes they need to go through, and we're trying to define with them what they are. Our intention will be to make that date as soon as is possible, so that the market has the certainty to continue to deliver that the long-term programme offers, but we are yet to finally confirm and pin down that date.
Okay, thank you for that. Tom, just back to you. We talked a bit about previous programs and the current program that's been rolled out. It seems that, as you rightly highlighted, the costs of building are not what they were. Costs fluctuate, interest rates fluctuate. All sorts of things happen. I'm just wondering what lessons from previous and indeed current programs are being applied to improve value for money in 26 to 36.
I think, firstly, as I said earlier, we're now getting back to what I think is a kind of, a normal level of subsidy. I think the 1623 programme was a real outlier historically in terms of the grant that we were able to provide. So I think this takes us back to sort of historic sort of averages. In fact, probably still less actually. I think in the 90s, 80 to 90% of the cost of an affordable home was subsidised by grant. At the moment, it's about 60%. I will pass over probably to Amy or Nat to talk about value for money specifically, because we do really, really drive value for money.
I'm happy to take that first. So thanks. It's an excellent question. We're learning continually as we work through programmes. We've got a lot of historic experience across the teams. And it's important to recognise the lessons that we've learned as they come up. So it's a negotiated programme when we're dealing with grant funding for the current programmes, and that's quite a change. So what we do is we look in a lot of detail at the overall financial models for every scheme. So that might be on a wider development basis, but also with our investment partners on an investment appraisal basis. And what we've learned is what's reasonable, what's the average, what actually is a reasonable level for a particular type of cost. Also, we've spoken at depth about, build costs. We've also have a lot more understanding now about regulatory costs linked to the building safety regulator, all the other factors that you would expect us to have a look at. And what our teams do is heavily scrutinise that so we can really work out what the funding gap is. And I think what's important here is that we do go back to partners and say, actually, that level at in this particular area is unacceptable. We think you can do better. So it's not just this is the grant that we would like. It's quite a long and detailed process involving quite a level of negotiation. And that's how we can really challenge value for money. Once we get to a point where we've done our initial levels of scrutiny, we peer review every scheme and make recommendations. So there's, really the level of review that is undertaken quite often takes partners by surprise, and the level of details that we ask. So we really are driving down, we are really trying to drive down costs at every level before we recommend any scheme for grant funding. And it's really a case of trying to improve value for money at every point. Nat, I don't know if you want to come in and add on at that point.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing that I would add is in that whole process, there's multiple levels of internal oversight, and because we are running this at a programme and aggregate level, and because there's various other parts of our team who are also intervening with the housing sector, it gives me immense confidence when I give the teams a really hard time about the propositions that are put forward to myself and Tim in our position as those who sign off those value for money positions, that there's benchmarking across various interventions that aid us in maximising delivery whilst holding value for money.
That's really helpful.
And just to sort of stress, I mean, again, it's what I was saying to Assembly Member Garrett just now. There is a very high bar to get a start on site. The tyres are very much kicked. And, as I say, I will get sometimes, usually not the big partners, but perhaps smaller ones, email me, say, oh, well, Amy's driving, a really hard bargain on this one. Come on, can we? Essentially, can I intervene? No, it all goes through absolutely proper processes. And the team is, as Amy says, the team is always learning. There are a lot more joint ventures now between partners and private developers. Judith in Amy's team has become a bit of an expert, hasn't she, on drilling into those financial arrangements.
Really detailed viability models for us, and says that, challenges where things don't look right. And on the starts on site, just a really good case in point, just before the Christmas break, we had quite a large scheme that came in. From a developer-led scheme, a scheme we were able to bring into the current programme, quite a large number of starts, and we withheld paying the start on site because we went back and properly scrutinised from the investment partner and the developer side. We got evidence in writing about their ability to meet our terms and to meet the start on site. So, it's really, it's not just waving things through. We do look in detail, we keep records. And when we've been back and checked for previous programmes, those email chains and the evidence are there. I think it can be quite hard for people to understand because it's very specific contractual guidance and what's set out in our funding guidance, but it is absolutely scrutinised at every point.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Assembly Member Garbett.
Thank you. We're now moving. I'm going to ask about the Programme 26 to 36, the Social and Affordable Homes Programme. So I know you've mentioned a couple of these things in the way you've been talking about all these programmes and how they work together and what you've learnt, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about any other learning the GLA has taken from the 16 to 23 or 21 to 26 and how that's being used to shape this next 26-36 Social and Affordable Homes Programme.
Sure. I think we're always learning about the sort of the balance between what requirements we put on partners versus, how flexible we make the programme, and that's why we have adjusted. And the government, wanted us to do this. We have adjusted. We've taken out some of the requirements in the 26-36 programme compared to the 21-26 programme. I'll invite Amy or Nat to come in with any sort of specific learnings that they have got from being on the ground.
Yeah, so I think it's a really fair question. I think I'd talk about this at two levels. So one is a programmatic level and one's a policy level piece. So our relationship with MHCLG has continued to mature, as has our relationship with NISTA, and those are the bodies that give oversight. So some of the fundamental things that I'd highlight there, because it's come up already, it is an excellent progression that we have not fixed a target for the new programme prior to bidding, because that means that we can be in a position where we genuine insight into market capability and ambition, respond to that, but negotiate through it with the sort of techniques that Amy said, where we push and we say, how do we maximise value? So I think that's a really excellent programmatic intervention. And then on a policy level, some other things that have come up already today, but that I think are progressions and take account of learning. I think the new tenures that we're putting forward that respond to the market really help us deliver services and new housing supply to a range of Londoners. I think the fact that we've held the ability to utilise some of the funding for temporary accommodation, which was by no means a locked-in policy condition, is an excellent piece of learning, because we've really seen in this programme how vital that is for the partners that we work with. And I think also when we look at that whole policy environment, the fact that we are seeking to tie in SARP with other potential interventions. So we're taking consideration of the emergency package in terms of how that responds to market need. There may be matters that come forward on low-cost loans. That's also in negotiation, so that we can really use the long-term programme with the long-term policies it's tying in with, rent certainty, rent convergence, to try and mobilise the sector in the long term. And I think that long-term nature of the interventions and the associated policies is a huge piece of learning, because the 21 to 26 programme was really quite short, but the 16 to 23 programme had limited agility within it because it had a set target at the beginning. So I think the really big fundamental things we've tried to take on and work well with into the future. And the other thing I'd probably highlight, Assemblymember Garbett, is that in some of the things I've just described, you will see a distinction between the programme that we've outlined and that is outlined by Homes England, which again should demonstrate that we're trying to respond to the very specific needs of London in how we set up that policy environment where we've got the levers to do so. But Amy, sorry, did you want to add anything as well? Because you've been working really hard with me on this, I'm aware of that.
The only other thing that I wanted to add was that from the work we've been doing on the current programmes, we've got a very good understanding of sort of delivery risks, and we really understand them now, and that has really helped us shape some of the new requirements for the new programme. So we've gone into the whole development of the new programme really understanding what delivery looks like across London at the moment, and it's been a very helpful starting point.
Thanks. That's really interesting to understand, Natalie, the way you just described how the target was detrimental in kind of the earlier programmes, because I think it's a language thing, because obviously for me, I've found it really difficult to understand that you get the bids in and then you set a target, because obviously a target is normally set, before you pursue something. So I don't know if it's just a language thing. And I think the word ambition and hearing the interrogation you do of the bids paints a much better picture of just we set a target after we receive the bids, because I've been hearing that is that we don't, it sounds quite, which you've just described, it's not kind of in that vacuum.
Yes, I think that's...
Oh, sorry, go on, Nat.
Oh, sorry. No. I think, Assemblymember Garbett, we are setting market expectations now. So you'll see within the prospectus, you'll see within the things we are saying, we are very clearly saying to the market where we are now in terms of delivery, and the associated potential grant rates are viewed by ourselves and by central government as an emergency package and emergency measures to bring London forward. So we absolutely expect the market to come back with a position that recognises these grant rates will go down over time. We've aligned that messaging with the messaging that our colleagues in Homes England are putting forward for where there's national partners to be consistent in that endeavour for positive value. But I think the opportunity that's afforded by working towards a target based on delivery ambition and delivery risk, which we have interrogated, means that we are putting the programme in a position for very, very grounded, highly rigorous, highly interrogated success, albeit it's over 10 years. So we will need to be aware that there will be headwinds and forces that come towards us. But again, we're trying to take some predictive account of that. Sorry, I think, Tom, I spoke over you. I really beg your pardon.
No, I think you've covered it, Nat.
And then just to interrogate that slightly, the SHMAR was meant to come out at the end of last year, I think, but isn't out yet? Is it out yet? Because
due shortly.
Because this is, like, how are we signalling to the market what we need if we haven't got the SHMAR, which is meant to be signalling what we need? And then, obviously, I'm going to fold in a question about accessible homes in a minute.
The SHMAR is part of the evidence base for the next London Plan. The SHMAR will be published shortly, I am told, and certainly in advance of the draft London Plan.
So what are people bidding against if they're trying to meet the needs in London? What are the developers putting bids in against if they haven't got the SHMAR? Because it doesn't really make sense if the bids come in February and then the SHMAR comes out.
Well, I mean, our delivery partners will be putting in for what they think they can deliver. The more funding that we've got, the more they can deliver. The better the kind of framework in terms of rent increases, rent convergence, all that kind of thing. That will be informing what our delivery partners are putting in.
I get what I'm really getting to is the kind of need around accessible homes, family homes, all those things that we know that we need, not just kind of the numbers, but just the types of homes that come through in these bids is my challenge. If we haven't had the SHMAR, like, it kind of is going to fall after the bids come in.
I think it will. I think the SHMAR will be out before the bidding window opens, won't it?
Yeah, I think it will be. But I guess the only other thing I'd say is that what we deliver through our programme is always just a part of what comes through the London Plan. The London Plan and the SHMAR as part of that will set out the full need in London, and the London Plan is there to try and achieve that. One lever we've got is our programme, but there's a much bigger system which brings forward that housing, and so I think we can be fairly confident that in targeting high levels of social rent, for example, which we're doing and we set out through the prospectus, then we are going to be going to meeting that key need.
And just on accessible homes, I know we've had conversations about this, Deputy Mayor, and we've done the investigation through Housing Committee, but the Mayor previously convened a task force around tackling overcrowding, and I just wondered if there's an opportunity to put together a similar task force or working group to really look at what the barriers are to delivering accessible homes, as identified through Housing Committee.
I'm very happy to look at it, Assembly Member Garbett. I'm meeting with some of the organisations that are pushing on this quite rightly soon. So, yes, I will get back to you on that.
Great. And then I just wanted to comment on acquisitions, just as picking up in this future programme in 26 to 36. I think, a lot of what we've spoken about today is about delivering homes in the future. 2030 has been spoken about quite a lot for key worker homes, some of the estate regeneration. So obviously we've got this acute need now, and it's clearly recognised that acquisitions play a huge part in delivering homes now. The Mayor set a 10,000 acquisitions target back in November 23. He set a 10,000 acquisition target. And I just wondered, I know we're going to get the figures, but I just wondered where we are.
There was the... a 10,000 acquisition target. There was the council housing target, but that was not just acquisitions.
There was a press release. The title was "New Report Shows Mayor's Plans to Acquire 10,000 New Council Homes Will Slash Borough's Temporary Accommodation Costs by £1.5 billion." So I wondered how we're tracking that commitment and that impact.
Those will be homes that we funded, so previously through Right to Buy Back and now through CHAP. I'm fully expecting that we will be able to do a similar acquisitions programme in the 26-36 programme. So yes, absolutely, we will be able, I think, unless Nat says anything different, to support councils to buy properties.
It'd just be good to know when we're planning to hit that, and if we are tracking that impact on temporary accommodation, because obviously that is a shared ambition of everyone's.
No, absolutely, and it's also important to acknowledge the LAF, the Local Authority Housing Fund, which MHCLG administers. I think it's £900 million for the next year. So, as well as our funding, councils can also get the LAF funding for acquisitions for temporary accommodation.
So, yeah, it would just be good in response to Assembly member earlier, about the acquisition data. It'd be really good to know, how on track we are for that 10,000 target, and also a breakdown of the CHAP bit specifically in the acquisitions. That was just
I think we can get back to you in terms of the numbers.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. I'm conscious of the time. It's not directly related to the 3 programmes we've been discussing, but I think this is the right point to raise it in the meeting. So over the break, I saw sort of media coverage of another government scheme specifically for providing new homes for asylum seekers. And I understand from the coverage that I've read that 198 councils expressed an interest in that, but seemingly only 5 have been named. So are you aware of any others beyond Hackney in London that have expressed an interest in that? Is the GLA interested in that as well?
I'm not aware of any beyond Hackney. We, of course, administered the refugee housing programme previously. If the government wants to make funding available for this purpose, we will be absolutely up for administering and delivering those homes.
That changes. So if you are aware of any other boroughs that come forward, and also so if the GLA itself wishes to participate in that, then hopefully you will let us know, because I think people have
I think you will certainly be aware. Yeah.
Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you. Can I just start off by asking how will the Mayor ensure that the new programme delivers at least 60% social rents that we've set out?
Yeah, absolutely. So this will be set out in the MOU that we have with MHCLG. I think that 60% probably is the sort of the floor, not the ceiling. I expect us to be delivering more than that, actually, across the course of the programme. That's what is needed in London, and that's what delivery partners, want to be delivering.
And just, incredibly important, as we know, because at the moment, obviously, we are living in a position in London where we've got 100,000 children, roughly, who are living in temporary accommodation. That's one in every classroom across our capital. We've heard earlier that temporary accommodation costs are about £5.5 million per day to local councils. We've heard a little bit about the acquisitions, but obviously this programme as well. This time next year, what position are we going to be in? Because these families are desperate to get out of those temporary accommodation, expensive temporary accommodation, into the homes that they deserve.
So this is something that that I will be dealing with, particularly through our Ending Homelessness Accelerator programme, which I co-chair with Grace Williams, leader of Waltham Forest and London Council's exec member for housing. This is absolutely, top of our list of priorities. Ellen might want to say a little bit more about the work that we're doing in the homelessness space. But yes, in terms of the Mayor's priorities on housing, reducing both rough sleeping and statutory homelessness is right up there.
Absolutely, thanks. And just to add, so the Ending Homelessness Accelerator programme, where you may hear of it abbreviated to EHAP, just to help with the acronyms. As Tom said, that's working very closely with London councils and across London government, really focusing on the need for systems change to tackle the homelessness crisis kind of across the board, both, as Tom has said, in relation to working towards a target of ending rough sleeping by 2030, but also critically tackling both the kind of cost and quality issues related to TA, recognising the impact that that's having on councils' finances, but also most fundamentally, as you said, on the individuals who are living in those homes. It's an ambitious programme, one that we are kind of grateful to have received funding in year from MHCRG to support kind of us kickstarting that. The aims of it, as I've said, are kind of to work across the system. So we're really focusing on bringing together partners, not just kind of focusing on housing specifically, but across government. So as government set out in their homelessness strategy, which they launched last month, in order for us to tackle this, we really need to work across government with all the relevant departments who kind of have an impact here. Yeah, lots of interesting work coming up there, and we will be sure to keep the relevant committee updated.
Thank you. And we'll come on to rough sleeping, so I don't want to necessarily focus on that just for now, but sticking with temporary accommodation with those families that are in those circumstances. We know that there are other international challenges, Liz Truss's interest rates that push the costs up, Putin invading Ukraine, which has pushed up the costs of, build costs, and Brexit disseminating and sending all of our labour market to other parts of Europe. So for those families, where they are now, they don't want to hear all this, and they don't want to hear about the strategies. They want to hear this time next year, how much progress will we have made on this particular topic?
What I would say is I completely accept what you say, but having the right strategy and the kind of systems change that we are driving is absolutely crucial to delivering the change that these families need to see. The GLA is, we are very much stepping up in terms of the sort of strategic space, working with our partners. We are recommissioning, I think, pretty much all of our rough sleeping services this year. So there's a huge opportunity there to deliver that kind of change. We're investing £17 million in making sure that every sub-region of London has an ending homelessness hub and delivering 500 additional units of move-on accommodation through homes off the streets. So as well as that kind of system change, which is really, really important, we are delivering very, very practical changes on the ground for people as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we now are moving on to rough sleeping, in fact. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. So how does the GLA measure the impact of the expenditure on tackling rough sleeping?
Well, I remember you sort of raised this with me at the plenary session, and I was quite astonished because I think your angle was, well, we're spending too much on rough sleeping, which I don't think any of our delivery partners, any of the organisations that work in the homelessness space would say that we're spending too much on rough sleeping. To be very, very clear, we've helped, since 2016, nearly 20,000 people off the streets. 75% of those people are not seen sleeping rough again. So, you ask about how we measure success. I think that's success.
Deputy Mayor, you've got a very, very bad memory. I was actually pointing out that as rough sleeping had gone up so drastically, along with the amount of money, I mean, City Hall's rough sleeping budget...
I must point out
let me finish why you're
your
wrong.
party's government.
I need to point out why you're wrong. City Hall's rough sleeping budget has gone up from 8.45 million in 2016 to 44.8 million. And even from last year...
we're very, very proud of that.
Even from last year, it's gone up 10%. People on the streets have gone up by 10%. My questioning to you before was how come the amount of money available to you has gone up so drastically, but so have the amount of people on the streets? Why are you not getting it right?
Because the need has massively increased, Assembly Member Hall. Down in no small part to the choices that your party made when they were in government. I mean, to listen to you sometimes, you think that the Conservative Party hadn't been in power for 14 years.
Well, it's gone up 10%
this government's been
since
in power.
Last year.
Sorry?
It's gone up 10% since last year. How long are you going to be blaming
because we are
somebody
still dealing with the effects of this. And the facts are that we have helped 20,000 people off the street. 75% of those people aren't seen sleeping rough again. The factors that are driving people onto the streets are outside of the Mayor's control. Assembly Member Hall, as I think you would acknowledge.
Well, then why did he put in his manifesto, then, that he guaranteed there wouldn't be anybody sleeping rough by 2030? If it's out of his control,
the manifesto commitment is to functionally end rough sleeping by 2030. The Mayor himself said, when he launched his rough sleeping plan of action, that he expected things to get worse before they got better. he is on record as saying that, because we are still dealing with the consequences of your party being in power.
Deputy Mayor, he always says things will get worse before they get better. In 10 years he's been here, they're clearly still getting worse.
In 10 years, we've helped 20,000 people off the streets through the Mayor's services. Those are the facts.
Right, let's go back to rough sleeping and try and just answer these questions as opposed to what you think you heard me say last time. So can you provide us with a full breakdown of the £45 million rough sleeping budget and to include the difference between external and mayoral funding?
I think we can do that. Ellen?
We definitely can. But happy to come back with that information, Assembly Member Hall, or I can speak through the numbers now, if that's helpful.
If you know the numbers.
Would be, if you gave me a moment, I can bring them up, but or it'd probably be better if we came back to you after the meeting, if that's okay.
As long as it's speedy after the meeting.
No problem at all.
Okay. So how do you make sure you're getting good value for money?
A very good question. So the majority of our services are procured services. So that goes through our formal procurement processes that are managed by TfL on GLA's behalf. So that includes kind of our adherence to the legal requirements around value for money and kind of cost and service delivery balancing. Once those contracts are in place, we have a set of KPIs that are tracked as part of contract monitoring processes. So they are both kind of very specific about rough sleeping outcomes, about rough sleeping outcomes, for example, how many people are returning to the streets, which you might see across lots of different services. But we also have kind of some very service-specific outcomes, which will be about the very particular services that we're commissioning through those contracts.
So they do have KPIs?
They do, yes.
Oh, and where would I find those out from various contracts?
We can, again, put some information together for you, Councillor.
Would you send those?
Assembly Hall. We can.
Don't we publish this as part of our the MDB subcommittee?
Some of it, yes.
Some of
Again,
it,
we can bring together what's publicly available and any other useful information
and any
as well.
other would be helpful. I mean, what specific targets and performance tracking measures are contained within the Mayor's rough sleeping plan of action?
So we've got the rough sleeping plan of action is kind of made up of a number of parts, including the goals and the actions associated under each of those. So we will going forward. Tom Quickby's already mentioned that we're recommissioning the majority of our services. The ability of those services to deliver against those priorities and targets within the plan of action will be at the cornerstone of how we're measuring success of those. But I mentioned earlier the Ending Homelessness Accelerator programme. As part of that joint work with London councils and London Government as a whole, we are developing an outcomes framework, a shared outcomes framework, which will be looking at how we are going to measure success across all of our work in relation to homelessness. So rough sleeping, of course, a really key part of that, but it will look more broadly than that as well. So there'll be a set of outcomes and associated indicators, which through the delivery board chaired by Tom and Councillor Williams, that will be on the key mechanisms for holding us, but also the entire system to account.
So the key things, Assembly Member Hall, we've developed with the Centre for Homelessness Impact a sort of definition of functionally ending rough sleeping, and that is rare, brief, and non-recurrent.
Because the actual targets, the Mayor's rough sleeping plan of action doesn't seem to contain actual targets. It just says that you'll monitor core data, but there's very little in it by the way of how you're going to reduce X by Y date style targets, which would be interesting for sort of.
So there are a couple of things. I mean, firstly, there is a target, I think, to end verification by 2028. Is that right? Yes. So we've got a target to end verification, which, as you all know, is the issue where people have to be actually literally sleeping rough to be able to access services. We've got a target to get rid of that so that people can be helped before they have to spend a night on the street.
What is that target?
That's 2028, and that goes to the heart of what we're doing with the Mayor's new rough sleeping plan of action, which is prevention. It's a move towards preventing people from becoming homeless in the first place. while also not losing sight of the very important work that our services do in terms of when people are in crisis and need helping off the streets.
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm looking forward to getting all the KPIs because that'll be very interesting.
Yes, and we will provide you with those.
No, that's great. Thank you. I mean, the other question to you, and I certainly didn't say it was too much. I was wondering what you were doing with it since the numbers are increasing. Have you got enough money to deal with this properly, given that the Mayor declares that it's going to be all over by 2030? Do you have enough money?
Well, we've got more money than we had previously. As you know, we've, I think, quintupled the GLA's rough sleeping budget. But if you ask me, would I like more money, I would always say yes.
Well, I think we all would. But, I mean, in reality, are you able to make that massive increase work? I mean, because there's not an endless pot to anything.
I think that we can be on course to achieve that very ambitious target that the Mayor has set of ending rough sleeping by 2030. As I say, I would always say yes to more funding. We hope there will be more funding available. The government has just published its national homelessness strategy, which is, absolutely fantastic, really good, very positive. But yes, we will always accept more funding.
Okay, within all the documents you're going to send the committee, which I'm grateful for, can you put the milestones in until 2030 so that we don't think that, that the numbers go up and up and up and up and you keep saying you refer to hockey sticks or whatever else you want to refer to. But it would be good to see the milestones to see whether you're actually keeping on target.
We will furnish you with all the information we have regarding milestones.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much,
Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor.
Assembly Member Garbett.
Thank you. Staying on this topic, have you been looking at the information coming out from the Centre? Sorry, I've gone down the article. Centre for Homelessness Impact around directly giving funding to homeless people directly. When I was in the NHS, this is something I really push for. There's countless studies. This is one in a long line. There was one 10, 15 years ago about giving small pots of money and just how it can improve homeless people's lives rather than I fully support the services and think they do an amazing job. But I think there is, ways that we could use the money differently.
I haven't seen that particular piece of information, Assembly Member Garbett. If you wouldn't mind sending it to me, that would be very helpful. And as I say, we work very closely with the Centre for Homelessness Impact. So anything that they say, I take very seriously.
Yeah, so it was evaluated by King's College. It's kind of partway through, and they were just giving £2,000 to people experiencing homelessness. But in this and previous studies, people have used it to buy clothes for job interviews or furniture or reconnect with families or, and done all those things that make people's lives really well connected and, improve outcomes. And just on the verification point around 2028, could you consider a step before where people who are referred from the members of the public who see people on the street being a first step of removing verification? Because that is where I was with people last night trying to get them into the SWEP emergency procedures in Dalston, and just the thought of having them to be, all those steps that they were talking about historically, those steps being difficult, of having to sit on the street night after night to wait for someone to come and find them, rather than just believing that they are.
And so to be very clear also about verification, we already have got rid of it, I think, for Clearinghouse. Is that the case, Ellen? We're working as hard as possible to do it for the rest of our services as well. Obviously, it will take time, particularly for our partner organisations that we commission, to sort of prepare for that change. Do you want to add anything, Ellen?
Just to say, we are, 2028 is very much when we want the job to be done, but we're already starting work in looking at, are there areas in our services that we commission or that our partners deliver where we can begin to pilot approaches potentially to work through maybe some of the trickier issues that Tom's mentioned in terms of how we bring that through the system. So just to reassure you, there's lots of work going on now about doing that thinking, and if any opportunity we have to bring that forward either through piloting or equivalent, we will be taking those opportunities.
Great. As I know you all know, this is, verification, and especially for women, and I've heard stories of people having to bed down with people because they're worried about their safety just so they can be verified. So, the quicker we can get that bit removed, the better. better.
But Assemblymember Garbutt, the only thing I would add is something really positive about the fact that we drove this forward in the Mayor's Rough Sleeping Plan of Action, because we were working with people with lived experience, which is something that I think those of us who worked on it are really proud of, that we got that visibility through that and through various other routes. That has, Ellen, correct me if this is wrong, but I'm pretty certain that is now in the National Homelessness Strategy. So it is not just our sole endeavour to make that something that comes away in the London system, but it's something that they're looking at removing in the national system, because we've really taken a leadership role in that system space.
That's really reassuring, and I've been thinking about the voice of people in temporary accommodation, people sleeping rough, in all these conversations we're having, so it's really good that that voice is coming through. Thank you.
Right, Assemblymember Mahfouz.
So I think obviously the ambition is there. The funding has grown year on year on year, and Tom, you said earlier that it's gone up by 5 times since the Mayor has come in. What is the ambition, the expectations that we should be able to see in terms of funding for next year?
This is very much at the top of the Mayor's list of priorities. I mean, just on a personal level, for one thing, it is when it comes to my brief, it's the thing that he raises the most is rough sleeping, because of the impact that the devastating impact that it has on people. We are committed to spending £17 million, as I mentioned earlier, expanding our network of what we're now calling ending homelessness hubs. So there's one in every sub-region. We are also expanding the number of homes that we have on what was called Clearinghouse, we're now calling Homes Off the Streets, by 500. And as we discussed, recommissioning our services in line with the ambitions in the Mayor's Rough Sleeping Plan of Action. So there's a huge amount of work that is going on in this space at the moment.
And having run a refugee charity where I could see straight away, one night on the street, it's just a downward spiral, isn't it? In terms
of devastating.
You're then open to not only the elements, which particularly this time of year are absolutely horrendous and can kill you by themselves, but also just the opportunities for other people to abuse you and misuse you in different ways. What will these hubs mean in terms of the impact, the support they'll be able to provide to people to help prevent homelessness?
So the big shift will be, as I mentioned earlier in response to Assemblymember Hall, this shift to prevention. So there'll be a real prevention focus with the ending homelessness hubs, which is of course absolutely vital. Obviously, we have to do the crisis, when people, are already on the streets. But what we want to do is to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. So I think that's the real kind of shift that you're going to see as a result of the Mayor's Rough Sleeping Plan of Action.
And so that will really focus around advice and advocacy, I'm presuming. Yeah.
Yes, and Ellen might want to say more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth saying that kind of a prevention focus looks like different things for different people. So absolutely this is about being kind of needs-led. So for a lot of people, we hope that, yes, advice and advocacy is at the right time or the right quality will get the outcomes that we want, i.e. they don't end up sleeping on the streets. That's our absolute priority. There will be others for whom the set of kind of interventions looks a bit different, those with more complex needs, etc. And we won't be, just to reassure, we won't be pulling back from providing that level of support for those who really do need it and those who have been living on the streets for a long time. But it's about beginning to get that balance right and beginning to push things further upstream. And actually, yeah, in many cases, if we get there early enough, a lot of the prevention we can do is quite straightforward and simple, but it makes a huge difference and prevents really kind of complex issues further along the line.
Yeah, I fully support that. And I think going back to the point that Assemblymember Garbutt made about verification, it can be make or break for so many people, and forcing them to stay somewhere which is unsafe, just for, understandably for a charity worker to be able to come along and do that verification piece of work. When you launch these hubs, the organisations that are working as part of these hubs, if you're not able to remove verification entirely, could you expand who is able to do verification through the partners that you deliver these hubs through?
We remain committed to that target of ending verification, but obviously keep everything under review as kind of circumstances require. But 2028 is our target, and we're very much on track for that.
I just, while we're on the topic of rough sleeping, I really want to give a shout out to boroughs when it comes to SWEP. They have massively scaled up their capacity to help people when the temperature drops below freezing, and I just want to recognise that they do so much of the heavy lifting, and they have really stepped up, in the last year or so.
Yeah, and I absolutely echo that. And I think, our thoughts are with all of those people who are, trying to bed down each night and trying to make sure that they're supported through these incredibly difficult times. So thank you.
Thanks. Just a brief little bit of housekeeping. We do have our next panel waiting, and we are somewhat over time. It's been a very useful, informative discussion. We've got 2 topics left, so if I could just beg for a little bit of speed so that we can still give...
I'll try and be concise, Chair.
I don't know why you thought I was speaking to you specifically. I was obviously also speaking to the people putting the questions. On which topic we move to the hokey-cokey question of the City Hall developer policy with Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you and good morning. The City Hall developer project has been, well, it's been in and out, as we just heard. It's been in favour and then out of favour and now seems to be back in again. So could I ask... why is it now seen as the right approach for delivery, and what progress on establishing a City Hall developer can we expect to see in the next budget year?
I don't think it's ever been out of favour, Assemblymember Roberts. I'd have to push back on that.
If I could bring you back to the answer you gave us this time last year.
Oh, go on.
We don't want to displace activity. No one benefits from that. We have to look at where we can add value and boost development. At the moment, this would seem the best way to do it, and that was by delaying the pilot.
But the two things are not contradictory. We don't want the City Hall developer to be displacing activity that takes place anyway. We want it to be additional. That's the logic behind it. So in terms of where we are at, 2026 is, I think, going to be a big year for the City Hall Developer Investment Fund. We are very close to arriving at our first joint venture, which I'm afraid to say, for commercial reasons, I can't discuss anymore. But it's a very, very exciting project. So, and of course, in the emergency package, we got the first £322 million from the government. That is the initial payment. We expect, for example, any funding for new towns to be on top of that. We will be getting, I am assured, the lion's share of the low-cost loans funding that the government has announced, and we're in active discussions about the sort of broader financial transactions. So, yes, I think 2026 is going to be the year that you'll be hearing a lot about the City Hall Developer Investment Fund. And I will also point out, I've talked a bit about this and about GLAP. I can see we've got Places for London here. They're about to break ground on 900 homes at Bollow Lane, 50% of which will be affordable. So if you take a more expansive view of City Hall developer as a sort of mayoral umbrella, there's an enormous amount that's going on around London.
Okay, I'm reminded that Alice used to believe 6 impossible things before breakfast, and it seems that Deputy Mayors tried to believe 2 contradictory things before lunch.
Again, sorry, not to labour the point, but it is not contradictory to say that we want this to be additional rather than displacing, at the same time as being very supportive of the concept of a City Hall developer. I don't understand why those 2 things are sort of considered to be contradictory.
I commend your courage in sticking to that. What safeguards are in place to ensure that the £322 million City Hall Developer Investment Fund delivers genuinely additional affordable homes rather than crowding out private or housing association-led development?
So it will be supporting private and housing association development. I think it can really come into its own, for example, with sort of gap funding, a little bit like the land funds that we previously administered. We got huge results from the land fund. We had a target of, 8,000 starts, and I think we're forecast about 18,000 100,000. Is that right, Simon? Yeah. So you know, we have, in terms of value for money, I think that we've proven, you know, our ability with the Land Fund to deliver, and you know, we will. Yeah, I think do exactly the same with the City Hall Developer Investment Fund. We've got a fantastic team scrutinising bids very closely. We, you know, obviously have a long-standing kind of list of priority schemes, which particularly will be, you know, stalled sites, you know, that we've identified through the housing mission that we run with London councils. So yes, I mean, I think it will do, you know, really great things.
Thank you. And how will the success of the City Hall Developer Investment Fund be measured, and what will its targets be?
So we're establishing those with the government. So there will be targets attached to it. We are still negotiating with the government about those, and you know, you as the Assembly will be the first to hear when we've established a target.
Thank you. Plenary, you said you'd publish a full list of the criteria once the fund is up and running.
There'll be a prospectus, yes.
But
yes.
Could you give us a flavour of your current thoughts on what those criteria might look like?
Well, as I say, we'll be quite focused on stalled sites. Mm-hmm. I imagine that you know sites within the GLA group will also be a priority, but we'll be, as I said to you before, publishing a prospectus in due course. Do you want to add anything, Tim?
Well, just to add, I think the focus will be very much exactly on what you were saying about additionality. You know, we really want to see evidence that putting this funding into schemes will deliver homes that wouldn't have otherwise or weren't otherwise coming forward.
Thank you. One final question is that when we spoke about this at the plenary, I asked you about a comment which the Mayor had made, that the funding would go to good boroughs. And I asked you what you thought good boroughs meant, and you said you hadn't had a chance to look at the Mayor's comments. Have you had a chance to look at the Mayor's comments, and have you come to a decision as to what good boroughs means?
My view, Assemblymember Roberts, is that good boroughs are boroughs that support housing delivery.
Fair enough. Thank you. It's a good answer.
Thank you, Susan.
Great. Assemblymember Harani.
I bring, you know, unity in my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just on the investment fund as well, Deputy Mayor, so how will the fund be reported on in terms of performance to ensure that there is transparency and accountability?
I'm going to pass over to Tim.
We're just setting out governance arrangements for it now. So when we set out the prospectus, that will include some detail around transparent reporting, which you know we'll need to do for government and for public consumption in the same way as we have done for the Land Fund. But yeah, it's all being worked on currently.
Thanks. That brings us to our final section, which is on the catchily titled Greater London Authority Land and Property Limited. Due to the fact that we're already well over time, what I'm going to propose is that I write to you with the questions that we would have asked, but to give you a flavour of what they will be, how is the GLAP budget approved? What are the targets that GLAP has for starts, and how is it delivering against those? But we, I'm afraid, don't have time to go into any of that now. So that brings us actually to the end of...
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I was going to ask a question, but can I give it to you to put it in writing?
You certainly can do that,
It's on Silverton Keys.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our first panel. Thank you very much, everyone,
Thank you.
For joining us in the chamber and remotely. We'll now take a short adjournment until, let's say, 12:15, because we need to rotate the panel, and we will resume with our second panel at 12:15. Thanks very much. Great. Well, welcome back to this afternoon's meeting of the Budget Performance Committee, looking particularly at housing in London and focusing on the 26-27 Greater London Authority Group budget. I'd now like to welcome our second panel of guests who have joined us in the chamber today. For the second part of this discussion, we have Shazia Hussain, who's the Chief Executive of LLDC. We have Richard Irish, who's the Chief Operating Officer of LLDC, and Darren Parker, who's the Executive Director of Development at LLDC. And joining us from OPDC, we have Dame Karen Buck, who is the Chair, and Matt Carpen, who's the Chief Executive Officer at OPDC, as well as Gurdeep Juti, who's the Chief Finance Officer at OPDC. And last but not least, from Places for London, which is TfL, we have Graham Craig, who's the Director and Chief Executive, Neil Hook, who's the Head of Property Development. I think that's everyone. Great. So Assembly Member Baker, if you do want to kick off.
Thanks, Chair. So my questions are to Graham and Neil. Good afternoon. First question is about the capital budget for the previous year and how it's affecting the budget for the upcoming financial year. So Places for London is expected to underspend its capital budget for 25-26, with the residential capital expenditure budget to be expected to be underspent by 70 million. Can you tell us why this is, and also whether it's affected your budget for 26-27?
Let me briefly just begin by explaining what it is that we are doing, what we've done over the course of the last year, and then I'll talk about where we are from a budget point of view. Tom talked this morning about the challenges in the sector. Despite those challenges, we've completed 1,644 homes. We're at 56% affordable of those 1,644. We've got a further 3,000 homes under construction, with completions last year including Wembley Park, Phase 1, Fenwick, 44 homes, 100% affordable, Barkingside, 98 homes, 100% affordable. Critically also, what we have done is make, enormous progress in terms of planning. So we have planning for up to 4,000 homes at Earls Court, 3,365 homes at Edgware, 575 homes at Woolwich, Southwark Overstation Development, a student housing scheme, but also 44 affordable homes, and Limo, where we've got a partner in place now for 1,400 homes. There have been challenges, things have slipped. If I give you one example, Tom spoke right at the end of the previous session about the fact that we will shortly start work on 900 homes at Bolo Lane near Acton Town. We waited for a year to get Gateway 2 approval from the building safety regulator to allow us to start on site. Things have slipped for a number of reasons. Those are viability. Again, it was already covered extensively. The construction inflation and the interest rates added to that, the challenges of setting up and implementing the building safety regulator. That said, what we have is a conveyor belt of sites, and notwithstanding the challenges that have been set, our ambitions remain the same, and once we get through those challenges, as has been the case last year and as will be the case this year, we will see completions, we will see starts on site, we will see sites come through on planning. So, and it's also worth me saying that we're a wholly self-financing institution. So the money that we make from the retail units that we have in and around stations from Arches, that funds our activity. The profit from that flows back to TfL, where we generate a capital receipt, for example, a disposal or a joint venture profit. We recycle those into our housing activity. So we take no funding from TfL. We're self-financing. We've got our own debt that TfL doesn't stand behind. So everything we're doing is self-funding. If there are challenges, if there are slippages, that is essentially just investment that once, for example, in the case at Bolo Lane, we're able to start on site. We were keen to start on site, and the moment we got through the building safety regulator, then we will see in the first quarter of this year, we'll see Bolo Lane works underway.
Thanks. So if I can replay that back to you, basically you've not been able to spend as much of your capital funds as you would have done due to the same reasons that other housing projects are delayed. Is that fair to say?
These have been seismic, once-in-a-generation challenges for the industry, and we've seen the impacts of that exactly the same as everyone else.
Thanks. So in terms of how it impacts the budget for 26-27, it doesn't look like it has at all. It doesn't look like it has at all because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you anticipated capital expenditure for this year, when you did last year's budget, as about 180 million, and you're still proposing that that's what you're going to spend. So 2 questions on that. Does that mean, correct me if any of that's wrong, obviously, does that mean that you're not basically going to be able to catch up on the projects that you haven't been able to start this year? And apologies, I'm recovering from a cold, so it's not the best time to have to start to ask budget questions. But also, you haven't made any adjustment to consider that you might not be able to complete all those 180 million this upcoming budget year either. So it's not made any impact at all, the fact that you've underspent. Does that make sense?
We are incentivised to make as much progress as we can. Again, we are separately funded from TfL. Where we can bring things forward, we're absolutely keen to do so. We are seeing, again, Tom's mentioned a reduction in interest rates in December. We're expecting further cuts in interest rates. The construction inflation issues seem to be easing. The building safety regulator, again, the commitments have been made that will operate within the 12-week statutory limits. We are seeing some easing of the pressures that are in place. We therefore are keen to get on and deliver everything that we said we would do. Where there are opportunities to bring things forward, we will be keen to do so.
Okay, thank you. And on income, the income in the upcoming... Sorry, the income you've had in 25-26 has... No, sorry. Your income this upcoming budget year is expected to rise from the previous year. So it was 110 million and it will be 124. Can you explain what that projected increase is?
Yeah, sure. So that, again, is the money that we make largely from not development activity, which is the bulk of the conversation we're having here. That, again, is the 1,500 tenants that we have across London. That is retail, that's Archers, some commercial office. Again, within the main discussion here, we're not talking about, for example, the fact that we will, at the end of this year, complete a major new commercial office scheme of a bank station. We will see work underway on a major and even larger commercial office scheme at Paddington. We've got the students' scheme at Southwark. We're making major investments, not simply in housing. In fact, the investments we're making in housing, the profit that helps to deliver that 50% plus affordable housing that we're achieving at the moment comes from our other commercial activity. If you look across the business plan, so we have a plan that goes through to 2035, and again, the fact that we're self-funding means that we can actually plan a decade in advance. That will see our income rising from just over £100 million up to 235. Now, that's the investment that we're making in the existing estate, creating that long-term dividend, the profit for which flows back to be invested into the transport network in London.
Thanks. So, and I think this is the only time Places for London are in front of us, aren't they? And so I think it just happens to be that you're here for housing, so obviously. So the increase is an increase in commercial income, yeah? Because I just wanted to ask in terms of housing income, you had lower than expected rental income in 25-26, and partly that's because some properties are no longer managed by Places for London. Is that expected? Was that an expected sort of move of management? And is that a change of strategy in terms of income coming directly to you or to somebody else who's now managing the properties?
Thank you, Assembly Member. And it was expected within our business plan, and it is part of our ongoing estate management strategy. The Places for London only in certain instances will hold assets long term, but for most instances, particularly for smaller areas and smaller sites, will divest itself of those assets for a single capital income rather than an ongoing revenue income, and instead focus itself on larger assets, as Graham mentioned, such as office space.
It's probably worth just, again, setting out. So Places for London at the moment is a £1.9 billion company. That's due to grow to be a more than £4 billion company by, again, the end of our plan. We don't have time to go through it here. Very happy to in more depth elsewhere. We have a business plan that explains where the funding's coming from and what we're investing, and an investment strategy that makes plain which are the assets we want to keep, which are the ones we want to invest in, which are the ones we want to dispose of. We've then got sector plans, whether that's the living plan that covers housing, or Arches plan, or retail plan, or offices plan. There's an infrastructure here that befits a multi-billion pound property company that helps us make decisions on where our investment is going.
Thanks, that's appreciated. And just finally, you've taken us through some of the breakdown of affordable housing. I don't know whether there are any figures in terms of what proportion of that, both in the housing starts and ones that are upcoming in the next year's budget, of how much of that will be social housing, how much of the affordable housing will be social housing. Do you have that? And if you don't, is that something that you can provide to us?
We can provide that. I've got some headline figures, but in more detail, we can break that down into our expected tenure mix. Some of those are still subject to planning decisions by local planning authorities, but we can provide that to you shortly after the committee.
I think that would probably be best if you did that, right, in the interest of time. But thank you, and that's all from me, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Desai.
Thank you, Chair. It is afternoon. Good afternoon, panel, and a happy New Year to you all. My question is to you, Graham. So in the earlier session, I asked questions of the Deputy Mayor about the links between transport connectivity, and housing developments. So in the budgetary context, I want to ask you a question about the proposed station in Beam Park, the Beam Park station in Rainham, on the borders with Dagenham. In May, the Mayor said that the GLA was working with TfL and the Department of Transport to update modelling on Beam Park and with Network Rail on capital costs. This work was expected to finish in 2025. Can you update us as to what is happening?
I'm afraid I won't be able to in this meeting. It's not a Places for London station. We are not responsible for all TfL's property. What was when Places for London was established as a financially separate entity in April 22, a number of assets were transferred out of TfL into Places for London, which of course is a company that TfL owns. So, and actually in that case, Bean Park, I don't think is a TfL-owned asset. It certainly isn't. Places for London doesn't have any ownerships, any assets that are around there. So that really is a question for TfL and its relationship with DFT rather than one for Places for London. But I am sure in correspondence we can give you the answer.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Assembly Member Harani.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be a quick one for Graham. I just wanted to probe the point that you made about not receiving any funding from TfL and keeping the entity separate. But so I just want to understand a bit more how it works in terms of if there was a state on TfL land that wanted to be that was going to be developed, which was, I don't know, for example, car park space or a large land space, does Places for London pay for the land? So do TfL get money back from Places for London?
Yes. So the land would be acquired by Places for London for TfL. There is no cash involved in that transaction. Essentially, that's paid for through shares. But the ownership is transferred from from Transport for London to Places for London. Remember at all times that Places for London is owned 100% by TfL, but we would have to acquire that land. Any investment would then be undertaken by Places for London. If there were borrowings, those would be Places for London's borrowings, and TfL doesn't stand behind them. So again, nothing that we are doing impacts on TfL's ability to invest in transport or indeed to borrow. But the profits from recurring revenue will all flow back to TfL. What we're also very conscious of is we've only got one owner, and that's TfL. So in every opportunity, including this hypothetical one, we will look to see what local improvements to the transport network we can make at the same time. So that might be investing, delivering step-free access. It might be cycling schemes. It might be, well, it could be anything that covers the broad range of the activity that Transport for London does. And everything that I'm saying in terms of the growth of income excludes that critical local investment that we make to improve the operation and efficiency of the transport network at the same time.
Okay, and just also very quickly, you mentioned at the beginning when it was set up, you had a sort of asset transfer. Was that the same? Is that the same concept as well? So it was shares.
Exactly.
That way. Okay,
yes. So yes.
If we now move on to the London Legacy Development Corporation, Assembly Member Garbett.
Thank you. Just an opening question. So at the completion of current plans, what will be the proportion of affordable homes delivered on the park and in the wider Mayoral Development Corporation area?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Assembly members. So we have an absolute commitment on the target for 5,900 homes by the mid-2030s to late 2030s. 42% of that will be affordable and 18% of that will be low cost. We did, of course, in December 2024, return the planning powers to the host boroughs. And from April 25 this year, we've been in a transition period where we've moved from an organisation with, planning as a planning authority into the organisation we are, which is smaller, but still has responsibility for delivering the homes on the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park site, which is the figures I've just given you. Part of that transition has also been about ensuring that the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park is open for business, and that's important because we are looking for investors and we are wanting to make sure that those partners, particularly the developers that we are working with on our housing schemes, continue to stay confident and continue to work with us. We've moved to a joint venture model, which enables us to be able to have much more control and also to have more influence. You've heard this morning about the very complex and difficult economic markets that we're working within. This means that we're not just a contractor, but we're actually around the table as a key stakeholder. So that's an important move that we've taken place. But we've also developed a new strategic framework for inclusive growth. We're looking for that to be over the next 3 to 5 years. House building and place shaping is at the very heart of that. So we've got 3 priority areas. The first one is around habitat, which is about ensuring that not only are we building homes, but we're building homes with good neighbourhoods, which is about using the levers of the place and the opportunities that our assets that we have on there bring so that people who are living there have good, well, healthy lives. There's a second priority, which is what we call the kind of engine, which is around talent growth, which is about using the opportunities to grow skills and employment, not only for people in the park, but also for the 1.2 million people that live in and around us across the four areas. And then we have a third priority, which is really trying to think about sustainability of individuals around good health and prevention. So we call that our kind of foundation, recognising that if people are well, they can have good jobs, and if they can have good jobs, they can live in good places. So that's a key element for us. I will pass over to Dan briefly just to give you a bit more detail on the affordable housing.
I think just in terms of Shazia's open comment, just to be absolutely clear, going forward, we're no longer a planning authority, therefore we're fully focused on our own development programme on our own sites. As Shazia says, that's 5,900 homes until 2036 currently, and by the end, 42% of that will be affordable.
That's really interesting, and thank you. And I remember this session last time and you giving us lots of really good data. So where are you now in terms of what has been delivered, the percentage of what has been delivered as affordable? Because I've got it here as 27% of what has been built as affordable. So how are you providing that commitment that, there was a commitment at one point around 50%, which is obviously in line with the GLA, and then I have a follow-up question to that.
I'll take that. So yes, we've delivered 1,180 homes to date, and that's 37% affordable. And of the affordable, the mix is split between 40% low-cost rent and 60% intermediate. So those are homes delivered to date. And I think you referenced affordable housing thresholds, and the reason that our kind of own pipeline comes out at the end, the blended rate of 42%, really represents the earlier threshold of 35% under previous mayoral regimes, that where we master planned sites and got planning permission for that threshold, and then the later sites in our development programme, which have been permitted under the kind of current regime closer to 50%, and that's how we're going to get to that blended rate.
And then that's really helpful. And then is there anything that's changed as part of the emergency house building measures that were announced in October?
Yes, we recognise the really bold kind of action taken by the Secretary of State and Mayor of London, and particularly on those later sites that are delivering, as I say, closer to 50%, where viability is challenging. We'll certainly be reviewing whether a lower threshold will enable us to bring forward those sites quicker than currently planned. What I would say, though, is that where we have sites already at 35%, they're already at the kind of minimum threshold, and even under the kind of new emergency measures. And where we are at 50%, at the moment, those have been procured or revised. Development agreements have been put in place relatively recently with our development partners, and we've baked in those higher levels of affordable housing. And for those schemes, the development partners are not currently requesting that we lower the threshold, but we'll obviously take that under review. You know, if viability was to erode or get worse, we'd certainly have to revisit that. Where we are looking very actively at the new emergency measures is on some of the later sites in our development programme, particularly because they have a higher level of affordable housing to account for earlier shortfalls in our programme. And we have one site called Rick Roberts Way in Newham, which is currently planned around 70% affordable housing. And we are now looking at how we are bringing forward that site, both in terms of planning that site ourselves and bringing forward a feasibility study, but how we might bring that back to market. And certainly in order to bring that site forward viably, at 70%, that would be challenging. So I think we'd be looking at the opportunity to use some of the emergency measures, but also that will be happening in tandem with negotiations with the GLA about the new grant funding programme, because it's certainly our aspiration to kind of maintain the level of affordable housing that we've committed to. But that would have to be backed by a grant settlement that enables us to achieve that level of affordable housing on that site.
Thank you. That is a bit worrying to hear about the fact that they were planned, you know, because of the earlier shortfalls. But I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll give some time to other colleagues to ask you further questions.
Thanks. Assemblymember Hall.
Thank you. Following the return of planning powers to the 4 host boroughs in November 24, how has the LLDC's role changed in practice, and what capability does it retain to influence housing delivery outcomes across the wider NDC area? And if you could be as brief as possible on that.
Yes, I'll do my best. So the 4 host boroughs and the leaders still sit on our board. So there is a close working relationship with us. But we don't have any direct authority or any kind of monitoring role across the 4 host boroughs. However, what we are doing is making sure that the broader benefits of what's happening at Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and I always say that we're not a 5th borough, we are part of the 4 boroughs, is about ensuring that the benefits that we're delivering, the outcomes that we're delivering, are working closely with the boroughs and also for the benefits of the 1.2 million people that live in and around that. But we don't have any direct control or influence over those.
Okay, so no direct control. So do you think you provide value for money for London in your current form?
Yes, because I think in order to answer that question, you have to go back to the purpose and the mission of the London Legacy Development Corporation, which was always to create a metropolitan centre. It was always to ensure that we have an excellent, globally relevant park, which I believe we have. But the third important one is about changing the lives of East Londoners. So that mission around creating economic growth, that's for also, inclusive, and also ensuring that we don't have a park which has a series of buildings that really have no relationship with each other. So there is a convening role that we very clearly have, but we've also got, as Darren has outlined and I've outlined earlier, significant housing development still to build. We also have commercial sites which are available for us to invest in, and that's part of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the finances of this. The GLA has taken on the costs of the London Stadium. You've handed planning powers back to the 4 host boroughs, but you're going to cost £34 million to operate in 26-27, with an income of only £22 million. So do you think you're a necessary entity at this stage? I mean, we're looking at massive figures here.
Yes, but there's still masses of work to do. So I recognise that in the mid-30s or towards that sort of period, you wouldn't necessarily need an organisation like we have at the moment. We've already reduced significantly. I feel that given the level of capital development that we still have to do in terms of housing. We've got 5 neighbourhoods to build. We've built 1.5. We've still got the others to build. We still have an estate that we have responsibility for, which is the park itself, which is 560 acres of land, including the waterways as additional to that. And we also, as I said, going back to the kind of primary purpose of the mission of why we were created, and to ensure that we deliver the legacy, to make sure that we are creating inclusive growth in and within East London, and particularly within the 4 boroughs that we're working with.
Okay, and I'm looking at value for money. I've got lots of other additional questions. Can I put them in writing? Because I'm mindful of the time. Yeah. Shall I do future risks, though? But I'll put some other questions to you, if I may, in writing. What are the main risks around the long-term repayment of the GLA loan, and how is this being managed? And what is the current expected year when the loan will be repaid in full? And how has this changed over the last 12 months?
I'll pick that up, Assembly Member Hall. So I think, the long-term model now and the repayment of the borrowings is predicated on the residential development. So that is key to that. So that's the key risk, I would say. So the challenges that we've heard about this morning, the challenges that LLDC has faced itself on our residential sites, as we set out on our budget, particularly in the past year, notwithstanding the positive progress we've made, that's the key risk we've got. At the moment, the long-term model still projects repayment of the borrowings, still projects a small surplus, but that is tight and it is subject to the risks of the residential market.
Okay, briefly, why has there been a further increase in the budget for the East Bank scheme in your draft 26-27 budget?
Do you want to start? Yeah. So you will have heard this in previous scrutinies, I imagine, that East Bank has been, whilst it's one of the biggest cultural investments that's taken place in London, and it is an incredible cultural quarter, it hasn't come without its complexities. And we know earlier on, talking about some of the uncontrollable risks around COVID and geopolitics and the cost of construction, etc. Having said that, 80% of East Bank is now open. We're really proud to say that the V&A Storehouse, which was the most recent one, has had just over 400,000 footfall in just a few months, way exceeding its kind of targets for the full year. Having said that, we still have 2 sites that remain to be open. So V&A East Museum will be open from spring this year, and the BBC building, which is complete now, but we are in the process of making sure that we check the acoustics because we've got 3 studios within that. It's a building that's complex in its design. You're building a box within a box, and there has been very high specifications and requirements. So whilst we have gone a little bit over budget, we are still within the budget envelope.
Okay. There are other questions, if I can just put them in writing afterwards. Thank you.
Absolutely, yep. And I do apologise for apologise for the previous panel, which has left us quite constrained on this panel, unfortunately. We now move to the Old Oak and Park Royal Development Corporation. Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year to both yourself, Karen and Matt. Congratulations on a year as Chair of the OPDC. Obviously, this time last year you were just appointed. And obviously, it marked both your arrivals as the next phase of the OPDC. One of the key delivery factors of that is obviously the new affordable homes that will be coming onto the site. You're hoping to deliver 1,100 as part of the section within Ealing by March 2030. How many of those will be genuinely affordable, and how many of those will be family homes?
Yeah, thank you, Assembly Member, and good afternoon. It's a really important question about the delivery. We're laser focused at the moment on a number of things. So to get to that outcome on the housing delivery, we've got to go through, finish our land assembly, get through our compulsory purchase, which has been submitted in September, and then work with procuring a development partner. But you're correct that 1,500 homes in the first phase is what we're looking to deliver. And as part of that, our analysis suggests 50% of affordable housing can be delivered, and we'll be tracking of that the family housing that can come out of the first phase. So that's something that we watch the policy. Obviously, 25% of homes as family. That's what we'll be targeting.
And you say 50% of the 1,500, so how many of those would be what I would term genuinely affordable, so social rent or thereabouts?
So the industrial land values in this area are quite high, as you're probably aware. The policy, again, we'll be tracking the policy, which is 70% market-facing, shared ownership, 30% affordable rent. So that's what we'll be targeting. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then in terms of North Acton Station, it's a key gateway to the area. And when we met last time, we spoke about the opportunities that it brings going forward. We've obviously done a lot of work already in the last year at that site to improve it. But you've put in a bid to government to introduce a new east-west bridge at that site. There are 2 options at the table at the moment in terms of step-free access. One simply ticks the boxes of introducing step-free access at that station. The other one really meets the ambitions of OPDC. Where are we at with those 2 elements?
Yeah, it's a huge bit of work. I mean, the first thing that I would say in terms of infrastructure for this whole area, it's incredibly complex. The station at North Acton, I mean, I come through it regularly. I'm sure you've been to it. We've invested with partners in Ealing and local businesses to improve that whole area right now, as in meanwhile use. So if you visit it now, it's unrecognisable to how it was even 6 months ago, and that's with meanwhile uses that are coming from Park Royal, who have populated that area with coffee shops, barbers, and also selling the ambition that is Park Royal. We're working really closely with Ealing on what can be done with the square and the access onto the platforms. So right now, we have a programme board that meets regularly with Ealing, and we're engaged with TfL. So I'd say over the next 12 months, we'll know more about exactly what funding ask is going to go into TfL, and also work on designs. There have been a number of design iterations, but I think they need to be revisited.
So just final question for me. When would you hope to have an update on that you'd be able to share?
Update on the square?
Well, in terms of the proposals for funding.
Perhaps if I can come back to you with an actual programme. The last meeting I attended was to scope out exactly where we were going with the design, because there were a number of options, but perhaps if I can confirm that in writing.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I look forward to it. Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dame Karen and Matt. So I say you've both, but I appreciate this predates both you, what I'm about to say, but you've both spent the best part of a decade producing a local plan which has been found to be unviable, then producing a new one, then doing land assembly which still isn't finished. Do you think then taking a further 5 years to deliver just over 1,000 housing starts represents acceptable progress?
Let me have a start. I mean, I think that, as you fairly introduced it, the early years of OPDC started very small, started relatively unfunded, started without a capital programme. And it's only been relatively recently that I think the whole project has scaled up very significantly, which you can see in the budget. And actually, I think if you look at the activity that's taken place over the last year and the last couple of years, we've seen massive progress on that land assembly. We now have got 94% of the land assembled. We've got the CPO with the Mayor's approval in for decision. We've got the illustrative master plan approved, and we have been doing extensive market testing against the very difficult background that you've spent these last couple of hours hearing about, and we will be going to procurement for a major delivery partner but imminently. So I think that it's fair to say that there wasn't the progress that any of us would have liked in the early part, but equally fair to say that progress has stepped up very dramatically recently. And I think in a complex piece of land assembly work, but with enormous potential because of the connectivity, we're really now in a solid place.
And just to add to that, I think there's been a hell of a lot of work over the last even 18 months to get to that position that Karen's described. And what I would add is that we're going to move now very fast into delivery mode. So from what has been a lot of legal work, a lot of complex negotiations now, and this is why Dame Karen's brought me in to help drive that delivery, is to take the next stage of this organisation into delivery. So we are focused on getting our partner in and on board so that we can deliver homes.
I fully accept what you've both said in terms of slow progress, but rapid progress, and funding has been more forthcoming over the last couple of years. But I think part of my concern, and I'd hope the committee's concern, is that leave aside the borrowing costs for one moment, but you're more than welcome to include it within your responses. But just looking at the operating and financial costs over the last decade, and then bringing back in the borrowing costs. What we find with a lot of local authority-led schemes, I appreciate this MDC says a bit different, but what happens is that over time, unless over this decade, the viability and the finances no longer stack up in terms of the end result. I mean, in terms of where we are, where we're looking and projecting to come towards the end of this, are we still getting good value for money?
So we've been running through the budget quite heavily, as you'd expect, over the last 6 months and even before I joined. I think we're working with the GLA. There's still work to do on how much we can drive this organisation to be efficient, and I think bringing in the partner on the delivery side is really going to help that. Going forward, the JV partner is going to be the expert in delivery, and that's where I think focus on our budgets will help us look at, what is it that OPDC is going to be doing going forward? And I think, again, my job to help with this is to look at the complexity of the infrastructure that needs to be delivered, the partnerships that we've got across the board with HS2 and with the boroughs and with government. So I think, over the next 12 months, we're going to see the organisation shift into that delivery mode. And one thing which Dame Karen and I are also focused on is our residents and how we engage with our residents on the investment that we make with them, particularly around Park Royal, but also the investment that we're making across the board on those groups that are looking to start.
Matt, just to say, this is the Budget Committee, so we're looking primarily at sort of what the ROI is for the scheme and the cumulative problems that have arisen over the last decade and where will be the end result. So I think you've said you've looked a lot into this, in particular the budget and forecasts. I'll leave it there so the chair doesn't glare at me. But what would be helpful, if you could just let us know, look, what are the forecasts compared to cumulative debt, financial and operational costs? That would actually be quite helpful in us coming to an assessment. So thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks. Assembly Member Hall.
Can you tell me what the options are for addressing the £3.4 million gap in the 26-27 budget?
Yeah, we've been working on that even over the Christmas period, but perhaps, Gertie, I can ask you to take Councillor Hall through.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, just going one step back, I think in the past, historically, we've been funded in two ways, from the retained business earnings and the MDC reserves, so the Mayoral Development Corporation reserves. What we have done to date in our first kind of draft of the budget is reduced the pressure on the MDC reserve from 6.7, which is what we drew down last year, to 3.4 million this year. So we've been working how to manage the budget position. Since then, we have also looking further than that and trying to find some other forms of efficiencies and savings. And as Matt said, we are working with GLA to find other options and put that forward at the next round of the mayoral consolidated budget.
Yeah, efficiencies and savings is something I've been talking to the OPDC about for a long while, and it just seems that we hear the same thing. I mean, why are your financing costs nearly doubling in 26-27 to 8.7 million from 4.5 in 25-26?
That's as we mentioned earlier. That's the impact of the land assembly programme as we've purchased, and we've got to 94% of our land assembly. So that's required the borrowing, and then that's the notional interest rate that we've put in there, which is the public board rate, and that's why that's rising.
Is that paid for by the GLA?
Yes, and in the table in the budget submission, this is funded through the GLA, because that's not necessarily the actual interest that's going to be charged on that loan, because a lot of this funding will come from the GLA reserves and cash reserves. But from our perspective as an organisation, we've put in a notional interest rate to understand what that is.
It's been a complete drain for years. When do the OPDC plan to start repaying the GLA loans?
So from our financial modelling of the scheme, which, again, to test the viability of the whole scheme, which we do on a regular basis, that still shows a surplus and also shows total repayment of the loans. Now, that will be, because it's phased depending on the receipts of the land acquisitions, that will be phased from 2036 out to 2042. So
okay.
That's our kind of...
Okay, I'm mindful of the time, Chair. I have got lots of other questions, if I may put those in. Thank you.
Okay. Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you to the three of you. Well, hopefully one answer's given the timing. Who will be responsible for any potential cost overruns on OPDC's heat network scheme?
So we've made huge progress on the heat network. At this stage, we're with DESNZ on the spending and hitting our target for March. So we're actually negotiating how we can extend beyond March so that we can get the heat network up and running due to delays on procuring commitment from partners. So at the moment, OPDC is not on the hook. It will be subject to further negotiation on the contract. So as we sit here now, and it's an important point that we discussed with the board, is that OPDC cannot take the risk on the 36 million that's been put forward by DESNZ. So as we sit here today, the risk doesn't sit with OPDC.
So you're looking to push it into the JVs then? Is that what you're saying, or your partners?
We're in the process of negotiating that at the moment.
But that's the intention.
Yeah, I cannot see a scenario where the board or the GLA would take on the risk of having to repay that funding.
Yeah, I mean, I think what would be helpful following this committee, if you could let us know, because obviously you've got the sign-up fees, the laying of the pipes, and then the running of it obviously would be ideal to go into the JVs. That makes more financial sense. But in terms of what's going on at the moment and in preparation for it, it would be good to have a bit more clarity. And you have answered it, Matt, so it's not a criticism. A bit more clarity as to how that's all going to work. So if you could let us know, I'd be very grateful.
And I think we can take that away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Final question, Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Also on the heat network, just wondering, is the delivery of the heat network dependent on using the waste energy from existing data centres, or is it dependent on new data centres coming forward?
Existing, yeah.
Okay, fine.
An example to us all there, Assembly Member Wilson. So that brings our questions to an end. Thank you very much to all of you, our extensive and very well-informed second panel. Thank you very much. You're now free to leave. We have a little bit of housekeeping just to wrap up the meeting, but thank you very much for your time this afternoon. So can I ask the committee to note the report and the discussion and delegate authority to me as chairman in consultation with party group? I have to read it all out before you say yes, sorry. Otherwise, it's not official. Where was I? Can we delegate, exactly, yes. Can we also delegate authority to me as chairman in consultation with party group lead members to agree any output arising from the meeting? Agreed. Can we note the committee's work programme and meeting dates? Noted. And the next meeting of the committee will be held on the 7th of January, which is all the way tomorrow, at 10 a.m. in the chamber here in City Hall. I have no urgent business, so that concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.